Am I the a-hole for expecting equal treatment for my kids? My mother-in-law lives less than 10 minutes down the road from me. At first I was so happy. She and my eldest son had a great bond. She would have him over to spend the night once every few months. I had twin newborns at home. Once they got older, she would take one kid at a time to do activities, about once a month or so. I thought she was doing what she could to help me. I was grateful. Then my sister-in-law had a baby. My kids only exist on holidays now. All of a sudden my mother-in-law is over at my sister-in-law's house cleaning, gardening, babysitting if her daughter wants to do literally anything. She's cooking for them, bringing them treats, and inviting them over to have pizza and movie nights. My sister-in-law works. I'm a stay-at-home homeschooling mum, and I run a small business. I watched my nephew and then niece once she was born from said sister-in-law during the shift overlap of my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. Until I asked to get paid, then I was fired. My mother-in-law started to get Thursdays off at her work, so she invited my sister-in-law over from the moment she wakes up to spend the whole day over there as free babysitting. She gets to nap, and she gets to eat lunch and dinner there, and gets a lunch packed for her night shift job. They called it Grandma Day. After 4 years, my now 4 kids are wondering why only their cousins get Grandma Day. My husband and I talked. It really bothers him that his mother treats his sister like a princess, but treats him like he only exists if he can do something for her. We agree to give her one last chance and to spread it all out for her to see our side. We've tried before, but she always changes the conversation. We tell her about the kids asking about having a Grandma Day. She looks aghast, says she has no more time to give. I said I'm not asking for an additional day, but that my kids love her and we could go every other week and take turns. She shuts me down right away. Said she's probably not going to do Grandma Day anyway as she's getting too busy. This was Easter. Not one Grandma Day has been missed except for vacation, which she went with them on to babysit. She was disgusted I asked, but I don't think it's fair to my kids. I'm not asking even half of what she's freely offering my sister-in-law. I feel like she's punishing me and my kids for me being a stay-at-home mum. My choice, my consequence. But my sister-in-law works. Shouldn't that be her choice, her consequence? Now they, being my mother-in-law, her 2 daughters and my brother-in-law, are all treating us like we're the a-hole for asking. Wow, this mother-in-law really do pick in favourites. Let's go to the comments. Not the a-hole for asking, and now you have your answer. As a grandchild who was thrown away when the daughter's kids came back, please do your kids a favour and start pulling them away. Seeing your cousins get all sorts of attention while you sit wondering why is a sad way to spend your childhood. Find and adopt a grandparent program locally and sign up. My best memories were made with older people who are grandparents by choice. Any chance you could move far, far away? Your kids know what's going on and will feel even more hurt the older they get. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I would go no contact with grandma and try and move far away. It's going to cause lifelong issues for your kids wondering why grandma doesn't love them. Always protect your kids at all costs. Okay, onto the update. 1 year later. Wow, it's been a while, and so much has happened. I'll try to give it a quick breakdown. 1. I stopped posting hardly anything on social media because my sister-in-laws would text or call my husband within a day of my posting, reading into things saying I was trashing his mother and them. I wasn't. I couldn't even post about what we did as a family on the weekends. They knew my husband doesn't have social media, and it felt like they were trying to turn him against me. Sorry guys, didn't work. 2. I was so stressed out my doctor believes it caused me to have a small stroke last year when their lies were at a peak. I'm okay now, but it was scary at the time. 3. Even though we knew it would be hard, when my husband's sister flew in from out of state, we spent a significant amount of time with his family so the kids could see their aunt. My therapist gave me several coping mechanisms to deal with them, mainly grey rocking, which helped a lot. I was treated fairly nice by mother-in-law starting a few days before my sister-in-law flew in. She was on her best behaviour. I'm guessing so that I'd keep my mouth shut during the visit. My children had only seen her at most 3 times since the Easter conversation. No apology, no attempt to share Grandma Day with my children. 4. The visit was awful. My local sister-in-law was so completely rude and unkind. The last day when I got home, I got the kids doing something and I made it to my room and I broke down and cried. My husband, who had to work 3rd shift this whole time, woke up and comforted me. He didn't want to even go and say his goodbyes to his sister-in-law that night because of their collective behaviour. But I told him it was just one more piece of ammunition they would use against us, so we went. 5. About a month later, I wrote an unrelated caption on a picture about how healing hurts. Nothing personal, just how when you grow you see things a bit clearer, and how it can hurt, but that it's worth it in the end. My husband's sister, who lives far away, started texting him and I the next day about how that's a slam to their mother. I had never once said anything bad about my mother-in-law to anyone ever. The most I ever did was post anonymously here on Reddit, or talk to my husband. So guilty consciences read into it. My husband brought up how he agreed with my post, and that he felt the same way. She went nuclear. That conversation ended their relationship. In this time they saw my Reddit page because I wasn't hiding anything, and wanted her to know our side, seeing as she'd only heard one side. She still took mother-in-law and sister-in-law's side. Baffling, I know. 6. Thanksgiving is cancelled, lol. My husband gets a text from his mum that she was cancelling Thanksgiving. He called her bluff and said she didn't have to cancel just to hide the fact that she would still have her golden child and her family over. We just wouldn't come. We had a small family Thanksgiving, and our 14-year-old says that it was his favourite Thanksgiving ever. We didn't attend Christmas either. 7. The smoke settles. Unbeknownst to me, my husband had gotten an opportunity to apply to a new job within the same company he works for. He had gotten several before, but he said this one just felt different. He comes home and rocks my world. This job comes with moving several states away. Never once did I ever see him moving out of state, ever. This is the man that bought a plough truck just so he could plough his mum and sister's driveways. This is the man who would let his brother-in-law work on his sister's truck in the garage and park outside for up to a week, all because they never ordered the part they knew they needed before they started taking it apart. This is the man who chopped wood every single year for them, but we never had a wood-burning stove. 8. He applied and got a great offer. We decided that we needed to visit the area before we made the decision. On our way out there, his sister called screaming and yelling at him about moving. She's a bit controlling if you haven't picked that up by now, and she saw him slipping through her fingers. The kids were in the vehicle with us and could hear everything, even though it wasn't on speakerphone, and we're driving a loud diesel. My husband ended the call. 9. We loved the area. The kids said they didn't even want to go back home. My husband and I talked extensively about the pros and cons. Never once did my in-laws enter the equation. In the end, I told him that it was his decision and that I would make it work no matter what he felt was right. He accepted and we went home. 10. My husband told his mother the day after we got home. She already knew from sister-in-law, but he had to officially tell her himself. Told her we had several months to get our house ready to sell and that he'd like for her to visit us out there. She said okay. Over the next few months she stopped over like 3 times for a few minutes at a time because she was driving by and saw us out there. She dropped off our Christmas presents so that we could take them with us, proving to my husband that she had never had any intention on ever coming to see and support him. 11. I am banned from sister-in-law's house because this is all my fault. She then invited my whole household to my niece's birthday party except for me. This is the niece and nephew I used to watch for free for 3 years until I asked to be paid and then was fired. My husband put the invitation on the fridge so that our kids could see how petty their aunt was being. She had the audacity to text him for an RSVP, and he told her that if I wasn't invited, then none of us were invited. 12. We list our house. Sister-in-law is ticked at the price the husband informs me, thinking it's way too high. We sell it for even more, lol. 13. We have a going away party. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law show up just to save face. It was so comical seeing them try to pretend they know anything about what we've been doing or what our plans are. People noticed and commented. The kids gave them quick hugs when they left. No tears were shed. My mother-in-law has the audacity to hug my husband and say, "You know I don't play favourites," as her goodbye. 14. We moved several states away and are so happy. Yeah, good riddance, I say. God, and the audacity of the mother-in-law to say, "We don't play favourites" at the end there. Jeez, someone who actually doesn't play favourites would never say something like that. Anyway, that's the end of that one. Give me your thoughts down below and we'll go to our next story. Okay, same subreddit. This one was written by Throwaway Account and it's titled, "Am I the a-hole? My wife says I'm asking her to mask." Hi Reddit. Sorry for this sock puppet account. I'm 34 male and my wife Polly is 32 female. Like a lot of couples, we debrief after our holidays. Polly works in a high-touch, high-interaction job, so we usually say our hellos, make dinner, and then eat separately so she can wind down a bit. Then afterwards, we sit in the living room and shoot the crap. Polly has a mild neurodivergence that means she tells, let's call it, branching stories. She will get bogged down in side stories and background stories and details that frankly add nothing to the core story about her workday. That's usually fine, but I've noticed it getting a bit worse, to the point that by the time she's done, it's basically time to watch a show and go to bed. I mean, I'm spending upwards of an hour just listening and adding, and oh wow, because she says she gets even more distracted when I ask questions. I brought this up with Polly and she said that I'm asking her to mask her disorder, and that's just how her brain works. I get that feeling, I really do, but I'm starting to feel like I'm a side character here, because she takes up all the airtime that we set aside to debrief. Here's why I might be the a-hole. I said, well, we all change our communication styles based on context, right? And she said that's different, and that masking is not code switching. I just want some time to talk about my day too, but I don't want her to feel bad. Am I the a-hole? Yeah, while I understand her side, it's also important for OP to be able to talk about his day as well. Let's see what the comments think. Not the a-hole. There's no reason why you guys can't take turns telling the day's stories. Also, you say she is untreated. Well, she needs to get treatment. Not the a-hole. What I'm reading is, both of you work outside of the home. At the end of the workday, you cook and eat separately to decompress. After eating, it's time to talk and catch up. However, you never have time to talk about your day. Somebody who has been diagnosed with neurodivergence can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think wanting to share your life with her is expecting her to mask. Is couples therapy an option? Polly is 32 years old and she's completely monopolising their time together. Opie replies, to be fair to my wife, she really does try. She puts work into asking me how my day was, then asking follow-up questions. I just don't have the same rapid process verbal skills as her. As I'm describing a difficult project at work, I tend to equivocate as I talk, whereas she is just like, Sally walked in and had huge jerk energy right off the bat. Also, I could tell she was wearing Spanx. Not the a-hole. Sounds like you need to switch things up. You should talk first, so you get a chance to talk about your day, then she can use it the rest of the time. I know how your wife feels. For me, branching out like that is the only way I can really vent. OP says, okay, help me understand. Sometimes she brings up things that are genuinely unimportant, like objectively, the colour of her boss's shoes doesn't really matter to the story about her big boss meeting. How does it work inside your brain when you're bringing that up? Commenter replies, think of it this way. A neurotypical brain connects point A to point B to point C. For example, I didn't sleep well last night, which meant I got up late, so I was late for work. A neurodivergent brain is more like a spider web. Point A connects to B1, B2, B3, etc. B1 connects to C1, C2, C3, etc. B2 connects to D1, D2, D3, etc. And all those points are interconnected. So for example, I slept badly last night, so I woke up late. I watched a movie where that happened to a guy, and as a result he got caught up in an espionage case. At one point, he stepped in blood and his white shoes turned red. My boss had red shoes on yesterday. Oh, I need new shoes. My old ones are falling apart. I wonder if that chicken place is still in the mall. And so on. That can all be going on in your head, but not coming out. So it can sound more like, I slept badly last night and was late for work. Oh, my boss had red shoes on. That can make it not sound connected, but it's because your brain is going so fast and you're thinking so many thoughts at once, but your mouth can't move as fast as your brain, so it comes out sounding unconnected and disorganized. Yeah, wow, interesting explanation and example of a neurodivergent brain. Let's go to the update. Okay, so it turns out that I was a little bit of an a-hole. Like nothing wild, but we had a good talk. Here's what she said to me. Being a teacher is hard. Being a teacher with untreated ADHD is even harder. She says she spends all day trying to contain her brain from doing what it naturally does, which is veer off in random directions that may or may not be relevant to a given conversation. So she does that all day, and she literally looks forward to coming home so she doesn't have to do that. Me bringing it up in the context of how we interact at night hurt her feelings, because us interacting time is her space where she can just let her brain be her brain. Is masking the right term here? I don't know. She apologised for using it because she saw it on social media and thought it fit, but it might not. She felt bad for dominating the conversation though, because she's not a monster, and she says she lashed out because she felt bad, but also didn't want to lose access to the time of day in which she is not fighting with her own brain. We decided to use advice I received here in Am I the A-hole? I will go first when we talk at the end of the night. If I regularly go overtime, then we will start using a phone timer to make sure everyone has time to talk. And she will try to work more interaction into her stories, so my role isn't just saying, yeah, over and over. Thank you for the advice. We are using it and we're confident that it will work. Alrighty, and that's the end of that story. Give me your thoughts down below. Maybe you have a similar dynamic at home. And yeah, I think her explanation kind of clears a lot up there. I mean, teaching is hard at the best of times, right? Anyway, let's go to our next story. Okay, this next one was written by user Anxious American Bride, and it's titled, Kidnapping the Bride Tradition? Hi, I, 24 female, am in the process of wedding planning. My fiancé's, 24 male, side is Scottish, and they have many different traditions. I learned one today called Kidnapping the Bride. His cousin explained that a few days before the wedding, a few of my fiancé's relatives and friends were going to take me to a pub and would stay there until my fiancé found me. They said it's a bonding experience where I hang out with his family and friends and my fiancé can bond with mine as they try to find me. His cousin is a bit of a prankster and is more familiar with the town my future in-laws are from. My fiancé lives in America but makes several visits to Scotland to visit. We are getting married in Scotland since he has older relatives that couldn't travel to the States. I had never heard of this tradition before, but when I looked it up, the best I could find was a version in Germany. The only Scottish tradition that was similar included covering the couple in food as a joke. I asked his grandmother about the last one and she said they would never do that one. I'm worried his cousin will purposefully choose a pub hard to find or pull a prank on me when I'm there. Has anyone else heard of this tradition? Is it common? If so, what happens during it? It sounds harmless, but I have an anxiety disorder, and the idea of being alone with his friends and family for hours without him scares me. I'm scared I'll say something dumb or make a fool of myself. I'm close with some of them, but not all of them. But I guess that's also the point of this tradition. One commenter says, dating myself with this reference, but it's in the movie Maid of Honor. Do you have reason to believe the cousin would be malicious? It sounds like innocent fun to me and would be a good opportunity to get to know them, as you said. To be honest, being worried about making a fool of yourself or anything like that is kind of catastrophizing. OP replied, logically, I know they wouldn't do anything intentionally to hurt anyone. They can just be a lot for me, and that's totally a me thing. His cousin is classic extrovert. They just like to joke around a lot. It's more the second thing he said. I want to make a good impression since, according to cousin, multiple relatives I haven't met before will be in on it. I'm more worried that they'll try to mess with my fiancé by picking somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and I'm in an awkward situation for several hours. It's also just a little scary being in a place I've never been with unfamiliar people in a country I've only visited a handful of times. Also, never seen Maid of Honor, but just checked the wiki. My fiancé did mention a tradition involving throwing coins for the children in the wedding, but I haven't heard the peck for a coin. I'll have to ask about that one. We're doing a hand fasting and the family has a special bowl and cup that we're both drinking out of during the ceremony. There's also a specific song my in-laws asked to be played as the last song of the reception, but that's all the traditions I can think of at the top of my head. We're still in the early planning stages. Yeah, sounds like a bit of harmless fun to me, but I can understand OP's concerns. Let's go to the update. I talked to cousin and I'm glad I did. We talked for over an hour. I explained I'm nervous since I've never been anywhere in Scotland without my fiancé before and asked about the kidnapping. Cousin admitted they planned to make it like a puzzle for my fiancé to solve since he's mentioned we both love escape rooms. Example, texting clues to the pub's name or location, etc. And even some relatives are on it already. Example, one of his aunts runs a bookstore and a clue could lead to her and she'd give him another clue. Cousin explained it had been so long since anyone in the family got married and they wanted to go big. Cue terrified bride. I told cousin that it sounds fun but might overwhelm me. Cousin tried to reassure me and after some back and forth, they admitted my fiancé's grandparents wanted to rent out a place and make the whole thing a second bridal shower or party for me since lots of relatives won't meet me until closer to the wedding. They were going to drop a surprise party on me. It sounds nice, but wow. I asked cousin about scaling back and we reached a compromise. Cousin will give me the location as soon as it's decided and, per Reddit's advice, I can bring a friend and relative with me. And there's a cut-off point where if my fiancé gives up or I've had enough, we text my fiancé the location and I can have as much contact with my fiancé via phone as I want. Cousin: Of course you can. This isn't a hostage situation. And they apologised for overwhelming me. Oh, great. Good to hear. They were able to reach a compromise. Honestly, it sounds like a fun idea. Let me know if you guys have done anything similar to that at your weddings. Am I the a-hole for kicking my 72-year-old mother-in-law out of the house at night because she threw away my things? I, 36 female, live with my husband, 41 male. I have a decent relationship with my mother-in-law. Compared to a lot of the horror stories I hear from friends, she's quite sweet and warm. She is, however, a little over-controlling, overprotective. I'm not sure of the exact word, but she has very strong ideas about things and no sense of boundaries. For example, when she stays at our house, she takes over the kitchen completely and insists on cooking all our meals. She cooks wonderfully, but she won't let me help her at all, and puts everything away in the wrong places, and then insists that her way is more logical. She only really comes for holidays though, and I do like her a lot, so I don't mind putting up with these mild annoyances. I'm currently pregnant with our little girl, who will be born in a few months. This is a miracle. I really didn't think it would happen, especially so late, but we got lucky. When my mother-in-law heard, she was super excited and said she would come over to help us get ready for the baby. She offered to stay for the next 6 months or so to help out, because my husband and I both work long hours, and it will be hard to handle the baby on top of this. She is also pretty emotionally invested in this, because she truly sees herself as part of our family. She arrived a few days ago and set herself up, then she started with the cleaning. I like collecting things from garage sales and such, things like little sculptures and books and baskets, stuff a lot of people would consider utter junk. Our house is definitely overstuffed, but it's reasonably tidy and it doesn't seem like a hoarder's house or anything. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, likes everything surgically clean. Yesterday I came home from work to find the house like a war zone. She went through my cabinets and cleared out everything she considered junk, and had apparently made several trips to Goodwill before I got home. I was really angry, and I asked her why she would ever do this. She said the house has to be tidy for the baby, and that it would be dangerous for the baby to be in my cluttered house. Then she took the next huge bag of stuff and tried to walk out the door. I kind of lost it, and I told her she could get out right now. She was shocked that I was serious, and she said she doesn't have anywhere to go and it's so late. It was about 9:30. I booked her a hotel room and called a taxi. My husband came home an hour later, and when I told him what happened, he was furious with me. He says I disrespected his mum and was ungrateful for everything she's trying to do for us. Am I the a-hole? I mean, obviously the mother-in-law's got no place to throw out her stuff, but I mean, she might have done it for a reason, right? Right? I don't know. Let's look at the comments. Not the a-hole, but you may want to consider why she did that. Your house may actually be cluttered with junk and she was helping. I of course don't have photos of your house in its previous state, but what she did was still an a-hole move. Edit, I didn't expect to get upvotes for this. I also see a lot of people commenting things I agree with, and I did make some responses, but I simply don't plan to sift through all of the comments. However, I did try to respond or at least upvote the ones that stuck out before opening them. All started making my Reddit app act weird. OP, if you also don't plan to sift through everything in the sub-comments, basically, go get your crap from Goodwill ASAP, before it's sorted and sold. Also, from one expected mother to another, best wishes with your baby. You will always have people telling you what to do with your pregnancy, child, and life from here on out, because they've done it already. Learn to be firm on boundaries and telling people you receive their parenting advice if they try giving it to you, regardless of if you want to use it. Not the a-hole. What the F? You have a husband problem, and you probably need to ask him if he gave her the green flag to tidy up. My mum is sort of the same way, though her house can be however she likes it, and threw out some stuff I wasn't ready to get rid of. Well, that's a boundary she won't cross again. You need to talk to your husband and then mother-in-law, but I suspect the husband has some explaining to do, because this is wild. Not the a-hole. What your mother-in-law did crossed every line for a guest in anyone's home, and, in fact, you could make a very good case for theft of your belongings. If your mother-in-law truly wanted to help you, she would have asked before she touched a single thing and would have accepted it if you told her no for any action she wanted to do. Instead, she did everything while you were away, when she knew you could not object or tell her no. You also have a husband problem. He made a vow to forsake all others until death do you part, and it looks like he's not doing that now. It looks like he is choosing his mother over you. He should have been enforcing the sanctity of the two of your home against her overbearing ways all along, and you need to get this worked out now before the baby comes, or your mother-in-law is going to be running your home, not you. Okay, on to an update. Thank you to everyone who replied to my post. Appreciate the advice and wishes for the baby. So I talked to my husband after we both cooled down a bit, and I told him I felt down that he didn't support me. He said it was just stuff and he didn't think I cared that much. I also asked him if he asked his mum to declutter and if he has a problem with my things. He said no, he literally has zero opinion about my decor or collections. I believe him, because this is the guy who doesn't know the difference between blue and purple. So he said that's why he thought I overreacted, because in his mind it's just stuff and not nearly as important as a person whose feelings can be hurt. I said that my things matter to me because I've put effort into collecting and fixing them, and that some hold memories too. He said he understands and he apologized. We went and brought my mother-in-law home from the hotel in the morning, and I said I was sorry for losing my temper and asked her if we could talk. She was still upset, but agreed. I told her I should have said this a long time ago, but I don't like it when she takes over and doesn't treat my home like it's mine. She seemed offended, but she said okay. I told her I would be really grateful if she helps with the baby, and I want her in my child's life, but she has to work with me and not just do everything herself. She said, but you work. And I said that I know it's not what she did when she had a child, but I want to make this work, and I think I can have a job and also be in charge of my home. She was definitely annoyed, but she agreed to everything and didn't argue, so I think it will work out okay. I unfortunately couldn't get my stuff back though, but I have plenty more rocks hidden away. Alrighty, and that's that. Give me your thoughts down below about that one. Yeah, ultimately a pretty good ending there, I think. Better to set your boundaries sooner rather than later. Righto, let's go to our next one. Okay, this next one's from the Am I Wrong subreddit. It was written by user NoTarget, and it's titled, Divorcing My Husband Without Trying to Make It Work. My soon-to-be ex, Eric, 40 male, and I, 38 female, were high school sweethearts. We grew up in a small town where the majority of the population was white. Eric is white, and while I'm not a typical looking white woman, I have enough features that I could be considered white passing. I recently discovered I'm mixed race, important later. Eric and I got married after I graduated high school. I became pregnant when I was 26 and had fraternal twins, now 12. EJ, male, and Natalie, female. As the twins got older, EJ started to look like Eric, blonde hair, albeit curly and fair skin, and Natalie started to look like me, dark wavy hair, but her skin would get darker like she had a permanent tan. Eric and I were confused by this because no one in our families had a skin complexion like this. Eric became a cop after college. When the kids were 7, Eric got a chance for a promotion, which moved us to the city. I started to notice that Eric would make prejudicial comments against certain communities of people that I would shrug off because they were not overtly offensive. One of Eric's co-workers noticed a picture of EJ and Natalie and asked if Natalie was adopted, as she had African American features, and suggested that I might have had an affair after conceiving with Eric, as it was possible that twins could be fathered by 2 different men. This planted a seed of doubt. By the time the twins were 11, Eric couldn't hold his doubt anymore and demanded a paternity test. He explained his doubt, so I obliged. The test came back as Eric being Natalie's father, but he would act distant towards Natalie. One day I was using Eric's phone because mine died to look for a recipe for dinner and came across a support forum where Eric was convinced I slept with a black man and was making awful comments about black people and that I somehow altered the DNA test results. I was furious and confronted Eric. He said there was no way Natalie could be his and demanded another DNA test. I agreed to prove him wrong, and once the test came back, we contacted my parents because I was genuinely confused about where Natalie's features came from because my parents were white. After dancing around the topic, my mum confessed that my dad was not my real dad, and my real dad was biracial. After looking at an old picture, my dad looked white at first glance, but the longer you looked at him, the more you could see his African American side. I happened to not inherit those genes. This seemed to appease Eric, but I could not forget the comments Eric made about black people, and told him I wanted a divorce. He apologized and said he couldn't understand at the time, but I told him it was disgusting that was what he thought about that community, and I refused to raise my children in an environment that fostered and normalized negative thoughts about any community. Eric and my parents tried to get me to rethink my decision and to go to counselling. I agreed to go to counselling, but I'm not changing my mind about divorcing him. I mean, if what he said about them was really that bad, then you can't really blame OP, can you? Let's look at the comments. Why is it that Eric's parents are trying to get you to change your mind, yet not educating Eric on his ignorance and hateful attitude? This irks me. And no, you're not wrong. You are not only doing it for yourself, but your children. And the fact that he had to have 2 paternity tests done is enough. Can we backtrack to the fact that his co-workers told him he bet you cheated with a black man and had 2 babies with 2 different fathers, and your husband decided that, yeah, you might just have cheated? What the F? Step aside from the whole kid and race issue. Your husband actually thought that you had not only cheated, but had a medical rarity occur, so much so that he doubled down on your ethics and decided not only were you a cheater, but also so much a diabolical mastermind that you altered medical lab results. Sister, wow, you are such a strategist. His career in the big city has changed him so much that your being of mixed race, your daughter favours you, and now he is struggling with a mixed wife and child. Don't doubt he's also taking your inventory as a mixed woman and finding it lacking. You can't come from this without an epiphany from him that he has become racist, that he is taking his racism out on your children and you. You would only be wrong for staying and subjecting your kids to his racist, abusive behaviour another minute. How are your kids? Even though your daughter is the focus, your son has the same background and has to be confused. You do what you need to do. Remind him actions have consequences. It sounds like you tried to make it work for your entire marriage so far. You're allowed to be done. Alrighty, on to an update. Wow, I did not expect to get so many responses. I tried to read all of them but couldn't keep up. For the ones I did read, thank you for the thoughtful words, and I do have an update, but I wanted to clear some things up first. I'm not sure what you guys mean my mum lied to me. While she never outright told me someone else was my biological dad, I never questioned it, so it never came up. She told me she would tell me the truth if I ever asked, and everyone, my grandparents and dad, knew and agreed to tell me the truth if I asked. Not all prejudice is negative, guys. The prejudicial comments my husband made was saying a kid would be great on track after seeing them run, and they happened to be black, or that a kid would be a good businessman one day and they were Middle Eastern. It didn't mean anything to me at the time due to my cultural ignorance. With that, my husband gave me no indication he had certain feelings against other communities, so stop with the, you were okay with him being racist until it was you. Ugh. When I said he was distant with Natalie, he didn't treat her like dirt. He felt disconnected because he had doubts she was his and wasn't as affectionate. Otherwise, they still interacted. My husband found out about the Reddit post and was mortified because he didn't realize how his behavior made him look. He also says he appreciates the comments that cut him some slack. Anyways, he booked a session with the counsellor at his job, found out that cops have on-site therapists for us to go to. We got straight into the issue. The counsellor asked why the comments bothered me so much, and I told her that I've seen so many innocent people suffer from hatred for something they didn't do, and how it makes people act way out of character. The degrading and harmful things people would do and say to others based on a characteristic they can't control, and treat them like they were less than human. My husband asked if he thinks he hates me and the kids. I told him I don't know. When it was his turn, he confessed to having an inferiority complex to black men, about how he thought black people were more physically attractive and gifted, and that the girls would have crushes on the black boys. How it hurt that none of the girls would look at them, the white boys. So the boys looked for compensating factors that would make them more desirable, having money, getting careers, not being involved in illegal activity, etc. And it turned into this ugly thing of why like him when I have this. I was floored. I asked him if he was like this when we met, and he said yes, but that I never triggered his insecurities because I didn't pay attention to them or talk to them, but it was always in the back of his head. He was worried I would leave him for them, so he started working out, playing sports and buying cologne to keep up with them. The counsellor asked about the comments, and he said he was looking for validation of his feelings as far as being good enough. When he considered the thought of me cheating, he couldn't understand how I could choose a menace to society over him that has provided for his family and given us a home. I was numb because I didn't think he felt this way. I told Eric that I want him to write a detailed, heartfelt apology letter to the community he offended. He is not to tell me what it says or show me, but to write it and then post it anonymously. If strangers can forgive him and push him forward to help be better, then I can too. After getting home, Eric wrote the letter, then posted it after proofreading it again and again. He's currently waiting for the comments, and in all honesty, it was enough to make me rethink divorcing him. He's not off scot-free, but I really appreciate his effort. If anything significant happens, I'll update again. Edit. Forgot to include this, but I have not forgotten the comments, and while he gave some explanation, we will talk more in depth about it after this. I did not just magically forget the things he said. The session made me realize he at least has some remorse, so we're starting there. Second edit. Shaking my head. The messages are already flowing in. To the people who are saying I'm excusing his behaviour, I'm not. For the threats, grow up. I do apologise if this will trigger something in people, as I did not mean for that. Eric's behaviour is inexcusable and there is much work to be done for him. One commenter says, "He owes you an apology too, as heartfelt and sincere as whatever he's posting anonymously. He thought you were of poor moral character, that you were capable of cheating on him and then passing off another man's child as his, that you were capable of deception enough to somehow alter DNA test results to continue the lie. Someone who could do that is a terrible person, and he thought you were capable of that." Opie replies, "He has apologized profusely to me. I didn't accept it at first because I thought it was BS, but after our cancelling session, I decided to give him some grace and allow him the opportunity to show he means it. I do want him to address his biases because while they may have started off as insecurities according to him, they have taken a life of their own from his job." Okay, now for the final update. This will be the final update because I am done. I didn't read a lot of the comments because a lot of them were terrible, but the good news is, you guys were right, and I was an idiot for believing my husband. I am relieved at the fact racism isn't tolerated or accepted by the majority, despite you thinking I am. After my husband wrote this apology letter, he received support from people telling him that they were proud he was able to admit his racism and that he was willing to change. I was willing to work through this, seeing that other people could forgive him and blah blah blah. A day or two later, I was using our iPad and received a notification for a text from Mum. I looked at it and didn't recognize the conversation until I realized it wasn't my mum, it was my mother-in-law. I'm assuming my husband forgot to sign out of his Apple ID, so it was linked to his account. I read the text that mother-in-law was disappointed that I and my kids happened to be of African American descent and that she didn't expect this for her family, but that they were tricked and we are one of the good ones. My husband said he couldn't believe it either, but it's not my fault my tramp mother lied about laying with one of them and that he was going to make sure our kids don't become one of the bad ones always on the news. My husband still kept his attitudes that I previously posted per other text with his mother. I realized there was no hope for him to change, so I'm leaving my husband now. I keep in contact with one of the wives of my husband's ex-co-worker who moved some cities away and explained to her everything. They will allow me to stay with them until I can find some place for me and my kids, since they have the room. I do have a job, so I do not rely on my husband for income. Sorry for disappointing everyone when my husband gave me that BS story and crocodile tears. In hindsight, even then I should not have. I just wanted to believe there was hope my husband wasn't racist, but we live and learn. I will not give an update after this because I'm exhausted and am only thinking about my kids. Ah, damn, what a shame. Just when you thought it was all going well, she finds those texts. Well, better she finds out than not, I suppose. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that one. Let me know in the comments. My parents invited their friends on a family vacation, and now I don't want to go. This post will probably be long, and I'll try not to ramble too much, and hope that this post is easy to follow, but I'm not sure how to handle the situation at hand, so I need advice. For context, my parents are swingers. I found out about them being swingers right after I graduated high school in 2016. I've never really had an opinion on the matter until recently. I don't care what they do behind closed doors, but I personally don't want to see it in person. I'm sure that makes me sound like a bad person, but I've always accepted them for who they are. It's honestly just really weird to see my parents make out with other people when they're around a group of people. Anyways, they're in a relationship with another couple and have been with them for almost 2 years. They, being the other couple, just recently moved in with my parents because they lost their house and couldn't find another place in time. My parents kicked my sister, her fiancé, and their baby out of the basement in order to give their friends the space, and put my sister, her fiancé, and baby upstairs in a 1-bedroom to share, which is a small 12 by 12 room. The friends have also stated that they're another set of grandparents for my niece and call themselves Grandma, insert name, and Papa, insert name. My sister and her fiancé are not comfortable with this, but my parents and their friends don't seem to care because they're all together as one. Now onto the vacation. We were supposed to go on our first ever family vacation last year, October 2021, but it ended up getting pushed back to the April of this year, due to costs, because of my wedding, which everyone was fine with. It then got pushed back again because my sister was in her 3rd trimester of her pregnancy and couldn't fly. It is now scheduled for February of 2023. My parents told my sister and I, along with our significant others, that they would be bringing their friends along on the vacation, and I'm frustrated about it, to be honest. With the way that they've been handling things with my sister and with all of their PDA, it's made me not want to go anymore. It's our first ever family vacation, like I've already mentioned, and I wanted it to just be family. I'm at a loss and I'm not sure how to handle the situation. And we don't want to upset my parents about how I and everyone else, my husband, sister and brother-in-law, feel. Any advice? Edit. I'm married and don't live at home anymore, although my sister, her fiancé and baby do. They're currently looking for places. We live in a state where cost of living is super high, like a lot of places right now. And with them only having one income, it's harder for them to find something. Hopefully that clears things up. Edit 2. I didn't expect this to get as much attention as it did, and I've read each comment and taken advice, so thank you. I'm fully aware that my parents are adults and can do what they want. I never once said that they couldn't, and I never said I wasn't against their relationship with this other couple. They refer to themselves as swingers, but yes, you could say they're in a polyamorous relationship. The issue I have is how they shove it down everyone's throats. I don't care what they do in private, behind closed doors, but once I see the PDA and the other things they do to each other when other people are around, that's where I get uncomfortable around this situation. They have a calendar on the fridge that says what nights they will swap beds and sleep with the other person. Example, my mum and the other woman move between my dad and the other guy. There are also times where they make sexual jokes about screwing each other or randomly flash each other when we are around. Like, at least wait until people aren't there to do those things. That's the part I'm not okay with. Okay, this is a bit weird, and yes, I probably would not be okay with that either. Let's look at the comments. Your parents sound incredibly demanding and childish. I wouldn't go at all, point blank, tell them. Your parents strike me as the type of people who do crappy things, don't care about how anyone else feels, and cover it all by saying nonsense like, I'm just living my best life. This is so bizarre, by so many degrees. Opie replied, It's so bizarre. I truly love my parents and I know it would hurt them if I tell them I'm not going, but it makes me so uncomfortable on so many levels to see them do things with another person. I think I'm just going to talk to them, and if they decide they're still taking them, I'll tell them I'm not going. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, I'm all for alternative lifestyle and crap, but you can't be doing that around your kids. Family time is for the family, not family plus F buddies. Opie replies, I'm all for supporting my parents as they've always been there for me, but like I've mentioned, I don't want to see every single thing they do. A kiss here and there is fine, but to make out or make sex jokes about what they want to do to each other in front of me is not cool, and that's where I draw the line. Thanks for your comment. If I were you, I'd invite them out somewhere for coffee or lunch or whatever without their friends. Explain that I appreciate that they see me as enough of an adult that they were able to be honest about their relationship with the other couple. But with that being said, I'd hope that they can understand though how nobody wants to have their parents' sexual relationships on display in front of them. I'd tell them that I'm uncomfortable with this new couple and do not view them as family regardless of the relationship they currently have with them. The upcoming trip was to be a family vacation, and in light of all that is going on, it is no longer something that would be a fun trip with my family, and I will no longer be joining them. Let them be upset. They've decided who they want to spend time with. Yeah, I reckon that comment hits the nail on the head. Let's go to the update. Hi everyone. A few weeks ago, I made a post about my parents inviting their friends on a family vacation and said I'd give an update after I talked to my parents. Well, I did, and it didn't go well. Also, sorry the update took so long. I've been struggling with the outcome really badly, and I needed time to write it all out. So on to the update. I brought up all of my feelings to my parents, and they weren't very happy. They asked why I never brought it up, and I told them that it was because I was fine with everything, until I started seeing it, and that's when it made me uncomfortable. Now they think I don't accept them for who they are, and they don't really see an issue with inviting their friends or doing other things with their friends in front of everyone else around. My mum basically said that what they do is none of my business or anyone else's, and they can do what they want. Which is true, they're adults and can do what they want, but some of the things they do should be in private settings and not for others to see. They also consider their girlfriend and boyfriend to be family, again, which is fine. I know many people do, and since it's a family vacation, so they're still inviting them, regardless of how everyone feels about it. I just want to be with my parents for once without their friends being there and having them be all over each other. They also see no issue with their friends calling themselves grandparents to my niece. I got upset and told them that my husband and I would not be attending the vacation and they could take someone else, and until they understand where I'm coming from, I would not be going around. So for the time being, my parents are being cut off. I'm very sad about the outcome, and it makes me sad that they would choose their friends over their own child, but to each their own, I guess. Thank you for all the comments. I read every single one of them, and even if I didn't comment back, I still read them. There were some very nice supporting ones that really helped, and also some not very nice ones that also helped. So thank you all. Okay folks, and that's the end of that one. Give me your thoughts down below. Would you have done the same thing as OP? Yeah, I think I probably would have. I mean, something like PDA in excess, even if it's just your parents, is bad enough. But your parents with other people? Please, no way. Let me know what you think and we'll go to our next story. Alrighty, this next one was posted on the Am I the A-hole subreddit. It was written by user No Bumblebee and it's titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my ex that his children are not my problem? I, a 34-year-old woman, have a 10-year-old daughter with my ex. We separated 5 years ago because he impregnated another woman. He spends weekends with our daughter. Recently, my daughter has been expressing that her dad's stepson is bullying her, and her dad isn't intervening. My ex's stepson is 15 years old, so I was taken aback when she told me that he would physically harm her, such as hitting, kicking, and even pushing her down the stairs. She also mentioned that her half-sister keeps taking her belongings. I confronted my ex after she relayed all of this to me. He dismissed it as kids being kids and suggested that our daughter should get over it. He also said his other children require more attention, and if our daughter can't cope with that, she shouldn't come over to his house. In response, I expressed my frustration, stating that I wasn't concerned about his other children's issues. He should stop neglecting our daughter's well-being. He then ended the call abruptly. Shortly after, his wife sent me a lengthy text accusing me of being an antagonist for stating that her kids aren't my responsibility. P.S. His children do not have any special needs or disabilities. So, am I the a-hole for saying my ex's kids aren't my responsibility? Nah, surely you gotta stamp out that sort of behaviour early on. Like, these kids are young adults now. That's not right. Let's look at the comments. Your daughter is 10. If she doesn't want to go to her father's home, please seek full custody. A 15-year-old hurting her isn't okay. Not the a-hole. Please speak to a lawyer about getting full custody and protecting your daughter from them physically and emotionally abusive a-holes. Every parent's priority is always their kids first, which decent people can do without justifying their kids' abusive behaviour, like your ex and his wife. Standing up for your kids' well-being makes you a good parent, not the a-hole. I would not send my 10-year-old anywhere with the expectation that 2 kids, let alone a 15-year-old boy, were going to hit and bully them. I would likely be laying hands on that 15-year-old's father for sure, and possibly his punk kid too if it didn't get resolved after the first time I talked nice to them. Opie replies, the thing is, if I knew what was going on, I would not have let my daughter go to his house in the first place. I forgot to mention that she hadn't told me this until I found a bruise on her arm, and then asked her to explain, and she just told me what happened. Okay, let's go to the first update. Thank you for all the advice I've been receiving. I talked to my daughter about not going to her dad's anymore. She expressed that she still wants to see him because she loves him, but she feels like he doesn't love her. This deeply upset me, as no 10-year-old should feel that way. I texted my ex, stating that if he wants to see our daughter, he should take her away from his house. Alternatively, if he prefers not to see her, I will take this matter to court and file for full custody. He responded by saying he doesn't care and that I can remove his parental rights, as he has his, quote, real children with him. Additionally, I mentioned that I'll be pressing charges against his stepson. He simply ignored that text, so I'm taking legal action and have sent the screenshot to my friend, who is a lawyer. I'll provide further updates once everything is resolved. Wow, what a prick this guy is. First he cheats on his wife, and then abandons a daughter who loves him. Now this poor kid's probably going to grow up with abandonment issues and no father. God, it just makes you angry, doesn't it? Let's go to the last update. So a lot has been going on for the past few days. I've talked to my lawyer. She said my ex might twist it into me being the bad person, since I blew up on him. But she did say if he did, he would just embarrass himself in court. I also asked my daughter if her being abused by her stepbrother was racially motivated, since my daughter is mixed. I'm black and my ex is white, and so is his new family. She at first didn't understand until I explained, and she said her stepbrother called her the N-word. She doesn't know what that means. That's why she didn't think it was important. After she told me this, I put her to bed and texted my ex asking if he knows what his stepson says about our daughter. He said, yeah, he says a little racist things, but it's not relevant. After the text, I know I was going to press charges on his stepson, and I was debating whether I should do it or not, but after what she told me, I knew what I was going to do. I called my lawyer again and explained everything, and now we're waiting for a court date. By the way, my ex has been blowing up my phone. He probably got the court papers. Thanks for all the support. I don't think I'm allowed to post anything about the case, so I might update once the case is over. Alrighty, and let's keep our eyes out for that update in the future. But otherwise, that's all we've got for that one at the moment. Give me your thoughts down below. Honestly, I have every finger and every toe crossed, hoping that they get their karma in the courts. But knowing these things and considering the kid's only 15, yeah, there's probably a pretty good chance they're going to get away with it, which just makes me angry to think about. Anyway, give me your thoughts and we'll go to our next story. Okay, for this next one, we're going to the Petty Revenge subreddit. It was written by user Patient Currency, and it's called Little Sister Calling Me a Parasitic Leech. Enjoy the Amish lifestyle. I'm 28 years old and live in a town with a cost of living crisis. I moved back in with my parents since we have a good relationship. I buy all the groceries and pay the electric bill. My little sister, 16, however, was not happy. She was saying that I should be a man and move out again. A few weeks ago, she started continuously calling me a freeloader and a parasitical leech. My parents are anti-tech. They're not part of a cult, they just avoid technology and prefer to live a simplistic life. The only modern tech they use is a laundry machine, a car, a flip phone, and a TV. They don't, however, take away our gadgets if we paid for it ourselves. When I turned 18 and was looking for my first job, I had to handwrite a resume since I didn't have a computer or a printer. It's impossible to get a job while still in school because of the poor job market in our town. Now, my sister was very lucky. I bought her a smartphone with a data plan since she was a young child, yet she was continuously calling me all these names. Eventually, my little sister's constant name-calling got on my nerves, and I came up with an idea. As the smartphone is under an active installment plan, I simply repossessed the smartphone. Now she is having the same childhood I had. Oh, and she stopped with the name-calling. Enjoy the Amish lifestyle, little sis. Haha, that'll teach her a lesson the hard way. Let's look at the comments. Bite the hand that feeds you, and it stops feeding you tech. Good for you. You don't get to be a brat with crap I bought. If that's how she feels, then she should stop being a parasitical leech to her parents and start contributing. This is a gentler version of what a friend of mine experienced with his entitled 16-year-old daughter. Some of her entitlement comes from playing two divorced parents against each other, sometimes successfully. She was demanding some expensive item, I don't remember, and when told no, screeched, "F you never spend any money on me." He said, "Okay, for the next month I won't spend any money on you." And except for food, shelter, hygiene necessaries, he didn't. Her mum was on board with my friend, as she'd been on the receiving end of this type of behaviour too. She had to pack her own school lunch and had no spending money. About 2 weeks in, she apologised, but the demonstration lasted a month. As a result, the entitlement knob was turned down several notches. Someone replies, "Man, growing up poor, I could never imagine this. I remember every single instance of every splurge of random crap that my parents bought for me. Every video game, every book. The time I got a Wi-Fi card for my computer, $40 for it. It wasn't even my birthday or Christmas, and even then it would have been a lot. We didn't even have internet when I got it. I was just stealing Wi-Fi because Wi-Fis weren't protected back then." Good for you for having a spine. It's a gentler lesson when family dishes it out versus what the world will do to her. How are you a parasitic leech when you pay for the groceries and some of the bills? You also have provided some tech in the house that she is enjoying. I don't understand her logic and thinking. Did she forget that you were contributing? This is a good case of F around and find out. Yeah, I'm assuming the sister doesn't know about him, paying bills and stuff. Otherwise, why would she be calling him a parasitic leech? Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Let's go to the update. This is an update to this post. It had been a while since I took back my smartphone, which I'd been lending to my little sister, because she kept calling me a parasitic leech for having to move back home due to the rising cost of living. She has had no access to the internet since, as our parents are pretty anti-technology. I believe that justice should be fair, impartial, and reasonable. Reasonable being the key word here. With that said, I decided to give back the smartphone to my little sister, as she stopped with the constant name-calling, was being a bit friendly, and because she was sleeping all day ever since I took the phone. I had already sold the computer though. Life is very short, and I don't want to hold grudges with anyone, especially my own sister, so I calmly knocked on her door with a smartphone and a data plan in my hand. "Hi, little sister," I greeted her through the closed door. "Effing what, C-word?" my sister yelled. I replied, "Well, I was going to give you back the smartphone, but it seems like you want to be left alone, so I'll leave you be. Enjoy the day, little sis." She then came out like a yelping dog, begging for the phone back. I told her that my friend really needed a smartphone, so I was thinking of gifting it to him. She then sighed and went back into her room. She's sleeping now. I think I'll let her buy her own phone this time. Hopefully she will mature in the coming years. She was a sweet child a couple of years ago, and I hope that she'll be a sweet person in a couple more. Alright folks, and there you go, life lessons learned. Give me your thoughts about that one down below. Maybe you've done something similar, or had something like that happen to you. Am I the a-hole for leaving the restaurant after my sister flirted with my girlfriend and made her uncomfortable? I've had this account for a bit, but I prefer lurking instead of posting. My 19 male sister, Hayley, 20, is a very open and flirty person. She's never put a label on her sexuality, but she says she's attracted to everyone. Ever since we were in high school, she'd often flirt with girls I was interested in. She'd also flirt with my friends when they'd come over to hang out. Sometimes Hayley would even come into my room without knocking just to talk to them. It was very uncomfortable, and some of my friends even stopped coming over to my house because of it. This made me really angry, and I told our parents, 45 and 42, but they'd always said I'm being homophobic and to leave her alone, so she'd always get away with it. A few months after she graduated, she moved out of the house and I haven't had to deal with her flirting with my friends anymore. 7 months ago, I met my now girlfriend, Layla, 18, and we really hit it off. We've been together a little over 4 months. One thing to note about Layla is that she's really shy, so she never voices any concerns until after the fact. Well, I really wanted her to meet my parents, so we set up a quick dinner at a nice restaurant on Tuesday night. Without even telling me, my parents invited Hayley, who was almost 30 minutes late, for the better part of the dinner. She would constantly flirt with my girlfriend. She'd give Layla compliments about her clothing, body, facial features, and even offer her number multiple times. My parents would just laugh along with her antics, saying it's just how she normally is. But I could clearly see Layla was uncomfortable, so I paid my side of the bill and took her home. When we got to her house, I asked if I could spend the night, and she said yes, and that's where I've been for the past few days. My parents and Hayley have been blowing up my phone, calling me all sorts of names, which has me thinking I was in the wrong. I haven't answered any of my sister's messages, but I told my mum where I am. When I asked Layla about it, she said the compliments were nice at first, but she got uncomfortable. So, am I the a-hole for making a big deal out of my sister flirting with my girlfriend? Edit to add, I didn't put my reasoning, sorry. My parents think I'm a jerk for ignoring my sister's messages and an even bigger jerk for walking out of the restaurant. They say I was entitled and rude. Does this make me the a-hole? I mean, I don't think so. I think OP's just concerned about how his girlfriend's feeling, right? Let's go to the comments. Not the a-hole. Your sister is a creep, plain and simple, and it's awful that your parents are enabling this and saying you're homophobic for calling her out and trying to protect your girlfriend. As someone in the LGBT community, it terrifies me how often others in the community get away with it. Calling out someone's harassment towards the same sex is not homophobia. Not the a-hole. Your sister is a creep and your parents are more than happy to turn a blind eye to her awful behaviour. Opie gives some more info in the comments. On Opie's relationship with his sister. I'm already really low contact with my sister and have been since a few months after she moved out. Last time I saw her was Easter for a few minutes. I'm thinking of going low contact with my parents, but my girlfriend says she would feel bad if this is the reason I stopped talking to my parents. I don't want her to think it's her fault, but I'm pretty sure she's going to blame herself anyways. Would your parents think it was cute or funny if you flirted with Hayley's dates? Hayley has never been in a relationship long enough for them to meet our parents, which is why I think she has so much fun flirting with everyone. It just makes me angry when I can visibly see my friends and girlfriend getting uncomfortable with it. A few told her to stop before, but she didn't. That actually reminds me of a time one of her female friends came over a few years ago, and I hinted that she was pretty. My mum said I was a creep and had to stop stalking my sister's friend. Someone says, I bet if you had a brother, your parents would be far less fine with this. I've often wondered that, and a few of my friends have mentioned it before. But my parents have always shut down the conversation before I could bring it up. Besides this, Hayley and I used to be very close and we had a bunch of stuff in common, but then she came out and it's put a huge strain on our relationship. I'm sure my sister was actually my brother. My parents would have said something a long time ago. I think they don't want to risk losing my sister and her claiming homophobia over them if they speak to her about it. Someone says, have you tried talking with your sister? I've tried talking to her privately when this started, but she would run and tell our parents that I was bugging her. Then my parents would tell me to leave her alone. It was a constant back and forth all the time. Why do they think you are entitled? Well, they say I'm entitled because I told my parents beforehand that I would be paying for the entire bill, so they didn't end up bringing any money with them. Apparently my sister paid for them after I left. Alright, let's go to an update. Sorry this update took a few days. I'm still reeling from everything that happened. First of all, I want to thank all the people who left comments and judgments. I won't say much as I'm sure you all want to know what happened. It's a lot. I'm still disgusted and don't really know how to feel about all of this. Friday night I messaged my mum and dad to let them know I wouldn't be conversing with them unless Layla was given an apology. Up to this point, that still hasn't been received and I don't think it ever will. I also let them know I'd be stopping by on Saturday to pick up my things from the house. Well, Saturday morning I go over to the house and bring my girlfriend's dad, who we'll call Carl, to help me. Sitting on the porch is my sister, who tells me immediately she wants to talk. Anyways, we go inside and sit down, which is when she says she has to tell me something without me freaking out. Basically, in a much more dimmed down version, my sister tells me she has had feelings for me since high school, which is when I started going to the gym and slimming out a lot more. She said the main reason she flirted with all of my friends is because she wanted to divert her attraction somewhere else. According to her, this is also the reason she moved out so quickly, because she couldn't stand being around me and knowing she couldn't have me. I left. I didn't get any of my stuff and honestly, I don't know if I'll go back to get it. I blocked my sister on everything as soon as I got back to my girlfriend's house and my mum keeps messaging me, telling me to apologise for walking out again. I don't know how to feel. I'm absolutely disgusted. I feel like throwing up all the time and I'm not sure how I'm supposed to get up and go to work tomorrow like everything's normal. I haven't told my girlfriend or her dad yet, and I don't know if I'm going to. I have no idea if my mum or dad knows, but even thinking about it makes my head hurt. This is so much worse than I thought it was. What the F? I know a lot of people might start commenting about how this is fake, and I don't really care. I wish it was. Oh my lord, I did not expect that. Okay, that complicates an already very complicated scenario. Let's go to the new update. So, it's been a week. I'm not sure how many people are going to see this, but whoever does, hi. After my last post, I didn't answer many comments because I was still going through the motions of what was said. I wanted to get a quick update out last week, but things got in the way, which led us to here. Last Tuesday, I messaged my parents telling them everything my sister had told me. It wasn't until Thursday I got a reply where they called me all sorts of names. They said I was perverted, a liar, a man-child, etc. However, after messaging back and forth with them for a while, it came out on my mum's side that my sister confirmed my story and wanted me to say it was false because neither of them wanted to believe it. It's safe to say I have no intention of talking to either of them for a long time. I told my girlfriend everything on Tuesday as well. She was a lot more supportive than I initially thought, so that worked out pretty well. On Friday, we told her father and we started looking for apartments to move in together. As for all my things back at my parents' house, my girlfriend's dad and a few of my friends went to pick up my stuff without me. I gave them a list of all the necessary things. My friends don't know why I moved out, but just that it was serious and not to ask. Which leads us to today. I know a few people on my update post commented about this being fake, and as much as I wish it was, this is the hell I'm living in. Over the past week I've been looking back to my sister and I's relationship and realised a lot of stuff that isn't normal. I'd give examples, but I just want this to be over with. Thanks for the support, and this will probably be the last update. Okie dokie, and that's the end of that one, folks. Yeah, definitely did not see that twist coming. Anyway, it sounds like Opie's got a pretty good support network with his girlfriend and her family, so yeah, it's looking like a manageable situation. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts about that one, and we'll go to our next story. Okay, jumping over to the Entitled People subreddit, this one was written by user 911 What's You Smoking, and it's titled, I'm so done with my boyfriend's entitled friend. Sorry if this isn't the correct place to post, I just needed to get this off my chest. I, 22 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 22, for 5 years now. We've been living together in a small town, very very close to where he grew up with his friend, 22 female. His friend Sarah has always been very vocal about how much she loves him, how she knows him so well, how she has even seen him naked as kids, how she is like his sister, etc, etc. They only see each other about once a month. She's been at our house about 3 times. Something important about me. I was sexually assaulted a few months before dating my now boyfriend. This was something that impacted me and has ruined certain aspects of my life. The guy who did it is a well-known person around the area. which means that from time to time I run into him. This brings me so much anxiety, so much pain, and the only way to feel better is venting about it. Sarah was at my house one time. I started bawling about it and decided to trust her. Big mistake. I told her everything. She knew the guy. The guy had actually tried to get with her before, and she acted so compassionate and kind in front of me. One day, we were having some dinner as a group. It was my boyfriend, Sarah, and other people I didn't know. Sarah asked my boyfriend what he was planning to do after uni. My boyfriend: I'm not sure yet. Me: why not a master's degree? Sarah: God, OP, stop pressuring him. He's worked so hard all his life. Give him a goddamn break and let him decide what to do. She said it in such an aggressive tone. Mind you, I was just suggesting. I've never told my boyfriend he had to do something. He grabbed my hand and squeezed it, telling me it was alright and that he didn't think I was forcing him to do something. Then Sarah asked what his future plans were for housing. I mentioned my family has a house in the southern part of the country, maybe a 5-hour drive away, and that we were planning on moving there in the future. I kid you not, these were her exact words. Hell no, he isn't moving to the south, he's staying here, and he better not go farther away than insert nearest city. I was a bit annoyed. Why was it when I recommended doing a master's I was forcing him to do something, yet she was prohibiting him from moving, yet I was the controlling one? Anyways, Sarah then started talking about ex-boyfriends and said she didn't mind if any of her friends got with their exes. I mentioned something to her like, I'd warn the girl first, I don't want anyone to suffer what I suffered. Sarah blew up. She was red in the face. These were her words. How effing dare you throw yourself in the middle of a relationship? Are you that possessive that you can't let your ex be happy? You're not over your ex and I can tell. You cried about him the other day. You're hurting boyfriend by not telling him the truth. She was accusing me of all these things, and then the cherry on top. Boyfriend hasn't been the same since you two are together. He's so quiet. He hasn't talked to me all day. You two keep showing affection in front of us all the freaking time. I've seen him naked as a kid and I know him so well. You're no good for him. She was annoyed at us holding hands and hugging each other in front of her. I started crying over her tone and her accusations. I'm very sensitive. And then she said something that made me bawl even harder. I'm so sure you lied about your essay. If it were actually true, you would have gone to the police. What did he do to you exactly? I blew up and told her in detail what he did to me in front of others. I was so embarrassed when I realized I'd told a bunch of strangers something so personal. Sarah said, You're such a freaking manipulator. Remember when I met you, you were crying over your weight? Sarah kept throwing things that made no sense. Anything she could, she was throwing it into my face. She has an eating disorder, and she threw my own self-esteem issues into my face. I wasn't expecting my boyfriend to say anything. Not only is he incredibly bad at confrontation due to years of abuse from his family, he's terrified of her. She's been like a sister, yeah, but as that big sister who bullied him as well. Anyways, we're moving to the south in a few months. Sheesh, yeah, I'd say moving to the south at this point's probably a really good idea. Let's go to the comments. OP, I'm sorry you have to deal with this. Sarah sounds awful. I hope you and the boyfriend are in agreement to go low contact with her, although I'd just ghost her. She's definitely jealous of other women in boyfriend's life, and it will not get better going forward, only worse. Just in case, have cameras and security on the new house. Sounds like the green-eyed monster has been rearing its ugly head. It is a great idea for the two of you to escape that small-town mentality and make a fresh start somewhere else. And if a certain unconvicted sexual assaulter happened to get hit by a car as you drove away, and he just sat there and let her abuse you and humiliate you like that, glad you're moving far away. She is a toxic bee and your boyfriend is a spineless a-hole if he actually sat there and said nothing. She's clearly infatuated with him and trying to cause trouble between you, and if he's scared of her then he needs to grow a pair and cut her off completely. Okay, on to an update. I shared my story about Sarah a few days ago. It was written a few days after the whole situation went down, and I was just looking for a place where I could vent my feelings. Thank you to those who reached out to offer support and advice. People on TikTok have decided to twist the truth and add things that are simply not true, so I just want to update so people don't get confused. 1. Boyfriend and Sarah have never slept together. They'd only seen each other once a month. There isn't a point in the story I mention them sleeping together. I only mention the fact that their families were so close as kids, 2-year-olds, that Sarah and my boyfriend had seen each other naked at that age. It has never been a sexual relationship. 2. Boyfriend cut her off without hesitation. Please don't come after him. My boyfriend was quiet during the confrontation because he was abused as a child, and confrontation basically makes him shut off. And Sarah was one of those who took advantage of his kind nature to force him to do things for her. I know from an outside perspective it seems like he's spineless and let me take all the abuse. He's aware of this and feels terrible. He, however, gathered enough strength to send her a pretty long message that night, saying how what she did was unacceptable, how we were going to move, how she acts like a feminist yet shames an SA victim, and basically made me confess what happened that night to a bunch of strangers. I know confrontation and defending people might come easy to you, but it's incredibly difficult for him to confront others, especially when Sarah has been a bully to him his whole frickin' life. I don't blame him. He's got issues and we're working with them. The fact that he was able to cut her off without a second thought makes me feel happy. 3. Sarah doesn't regret it. According to some friends we have in common, it was something she had on her chest for a long time, and she didn't want to stand by and let me, quote, manipulate and control his life. God forbid I give my own boyfriend suggestions or plan my future with him. She thinks my boyfriend cutting her off is my doing. Nope, sorry, all his choice. 4. Strangers reached out. There were a lot of people at the dinner party. This happened while we were out having dinner with Sarah's friends, who had to hear my very, very detailed explanation of what went on with the person who SA'd me. I deeply regret telling Sarah about my SA, especially in front of so many people. I made them so uncomfortable. But many of those strangers reached out to give me support. They have also cut Sarah out of their lives because she showed her true colours, making an SA victim relive trauma and accusing her of not being over him. I'm so happy that they didn't let that night ruin their image of me, and that I'm not a controlling freak like Sarah said. 5. What now? So, yeah, after the whole drama that night, we went home and I realised I can't frickin' live like this. I don't want to run into my abuser every so often, because it triggers me and I can't heal this way, even after 5 years. My boyfriend can't heal having one of his so-called friends live literally a 10-minute walk from us, so like the post says, we've decided to move earlier than expected. We're looking for a therapist to help us deal with our respective issues. Okay, let's jump straight to the final update. Hi guys, this is going to be my final update. I want to leave the whole Sarah thing behind me since she's no longer a part of our lives. I first came to Reddit in search of people who would support me during a difficult time, and while I have received much love and support, thank you for this, I've also had to read various mean comments and people doubting my story. I have also seen people have made TikToks about my situation. Various TikToks changed the title, changed various details of the story to make my boyfriend look horrible, added in lies where they said Sarah and him slept together, again not the case, cut off very important details and basically manipulated my whole story for clicks and views. I've had to read people tell me I have no self-respect for staying with my SO, calling my SO a douchebag for having him deal with his own traumatic problems. So for now, I don't want to keep updating Reddit about Sarah, because then I'd have to mention my SA, and yeah, not really good for my mental health. But I do want to share some info to finally close this. 1. Sarah and her friend tried to contact me last night. She's blocked on our phones, so I received a message from her friend who I didn't know existed. I guess she realised my boyfriend was actually being serious about going no contact, and she realised she effed up. The friend said that I should talk to my boyfriend and tell him to change his mind, because it was something she said in the heat of the moment and that she was sorry, and that she wanted us to have a girls' day to talk about the situation. I, of course, blocked that number without even responding. People have mostly been on my side, and Sarah is going crazy over this fact. I guess she realised she showed her true colours and that she doesn't have any power over people anymore. I guess she realised the only thing she could do was apologise, but I don't think she really regrets it. Even if she did, she used my trauma as a weapon against me, and I will never forgive anyone who does that. 2. I mentioned in my last post that people from the dinner party had reached out to me to defend me, but now I have been reached out by Sarah's ex-friends, not the ones from the party, to tell me that Sarah is not only trying to control my boyfriend, but everyone she interacts with. And when she couldn't, Well, Sarah would either give them ultimatums or just cut them off. Long story short, everything had to go her way, and she would get upset when people wouldn't bend over backward for her. In school, she bullied other people and then claimed she was being bullied because nobody wanted to be around her. Sarah has told me she was bullied, but not that she was a bully. She claimed in the past she was an empath, which was why she understood my pain. 3. The real reason why she blew up at me that night was because she saw my boyfriend is changing. She saw that it's an actual serious relationship, that he is making more decisions for himself, and she thought it was my doing. She didn't like the fact she couldn't spend more time with him and hated the fact we hugged and held hands while we were out in public. I guess Sarah's problem is one of control. From what other victims have told me, she seems to be the type who likes to claim they're an empath, but also wants to control her friends' lives. It's sad, really. My boyfriend has opened up more about his experiences with her, and they're heartbreaking, and I just don't feel comfortable sharing more details about this. 4. Is Sarah in love with the boyfriend? We honestly don't think that's the case, but I'm aware I could be wrong. To be completely honest, I have questioned this in the past when I met her, but Sarah does have a long-time partner from my understanding. I've met him twice. Again, Sarah's problem is that she feels the need to control her friends. This ranges from deciding what we're going to have for dinner, to demanding we all go dressed a certain way for Halloween, to making life choices for others. If you ask me, I think she was projecting. She accused me of being controlling, threw my past eating disorder into my face when she literally has admitted she has one. Also just random things that made no sense to even mention. So yeah, I don't think I want to keep updating. I just want to continue living my life, plan my trip to the south of the country, and take care of my pets. Thank you to all who cared and are supporting. Rightio, and that's all she wrote for that one. Yeah, I think we've all kind of met someone like Sarah at least one point in our lives, to varying degrees of intensity, but this one was by far the worst I've heard. And the fact that all her friends were turning on her as well, just shows how completely off the rails she got. Am I the a-hole for not closing the door while showering, even though my sister's boyfriend slept over? I, 17 male, live at home with my two sisters and parents. My older sister, 22, has been dating her boyfriend, 21, for 3 months now. He's been sleeping over at our apartment ever since they started dating, but the frequency of the sleepovers have been increasing over the past few weeks. Our apartment isn't tiny, but it's small enough that we all share a bathroom. The room doesn't have air conditioning and only has one window that doesn't really let a draft out. When you shower, the room steams up a ton, so my whole life we've just either left the door ajar or opened the door fully as soon as we stepped out of the shower and did the rest of our bathroom stuff. The very first time my sister's boyfriend slept over, I was getting ready to go to bed in the bathroom and had the door closed, but unlocked. I was taking off my boxer shorts when he walked into the bathroom. He immediately apologized, closed the door, and we never spoke about it again. Well, last week I thought I was home alone and was taking a shower in the afternoon with the door ajar, as always. After I was done, I opened the bathroom door and continued with my routine. Lotion, face cream, stuff like that, and noticed that my sister had come home during my shower. When I was done, I walked into the kitchen to find my sister and her boyfriend having an argument. I didn't want to intrude, so I left and soon heard the front door fall closed. In the evening, I made dinner for our family, and while I was cooking, my other sister, 20, came and talked to me. Apparently, our oldest sister and her boyfriend argument was about me and my showering habits. He thinks it's disgusting that I shower with the door ajar and feels uncomfortable with me using the bathroom in my own house. This shocked me because from the way our bathroom is set up, you can't even see the shower from outside of the door. I went to my other sister and asked her if this was true, and she refused to talk to me. It's not as if I was the only one that showered like this. We all do. I'm just the only one taking showers in the afternoon and evening when her boyfriend is usually there, because that's when I come home from hockey practice. So, am I the a-hole for not completely closing the bathroom door while I shower? Oh, come on, it's Opie's house. I don't think he has any right to say anything like that. Let's check out the comments. Not the a-hole. If he's so disgusted, he can F off back to his own place. Not the a-hole. You deserve to be comfortable in your own home, and if that means leaving the door slightly ajar to let the shower steam out, I think that's very reasonable. If it makes him uncomfortable that he might walk in on someone naked, he should learn to knock first, even if the door is slightly open. It's not like you're walking around naked out in the open. Not the a-hole. Opie said if you see it from the outside, then he has to be putting his head in to check who is in the shower, which means he has to be putting his head inside to actually see who is showering, and the fact that he is complaining specifically about OP means he hates that he isn't seeing the others or has only seen OP doing so. The fact that it seems like it's common knowledge means that the boyfriend probably is informed about this, especially after the first incident, since he would have talked about it. It means he purposely looked inside. At least to me it does. Any idea as to why he finds it disgusting? Opie says, I don't know about him, but I'm openly queer, so maybe that's the issue. Why Opie keeps the door open? The main reason for keeping the door open is because we live in an old building and don't want any mold or whatever because it's too steamy inside. Someone asks, could he be trying to peep on your sister? Opie replies, this is something multiple people have said and I'm really worried it's something like him trying to peep in on my other sister. Okay, now for an update. Hi guys. Okay, to make it easier, I'm going to give my sisters names because otherwise I think it's going to get confusing. The sister whose boyfriend was the issue I'll call Ava, and my other sister Vic. Sister's boyfriend I'll call Ben. Today Vic came home pretty early, so when I heard her arrive, I immediately asked her to talk about yesterday. Since some of you brought it up, I asked her if he actually used the word disgusting, or if she thinks Ava was paraphrasing, and in her opinion Ava said it in a way she thought that Ben had actually said it. I also asked her if he'd ever done anything to make her uncomfortable, and she laughed it off, so I truly hope nothing happened there. When Ava came home, she was alone, so I asked her if she would talk to me, and she agreed, even though she looked really uncomfortable about the whole situation. I asked her if Ben had actually said it was disgusting, or if he only implied it, and she said that he actually said it. I also asked her if she was mad at me or the situation, and that's when she got super angry. She started going off at home how I apparently always have to make every situation about myself, and said some other unsavory things about me. After yelling at me, she left the kitchen and went to her room, dramatic door slam and all, which was kind of a trigger for me that I may be being a bit too petty. Again, our argument isn't that huge, so because the kitchen door and my other sister's door was open, Vic heard the entire argument and came to the kitchen to tell me she's on my side. Back to the petty part. My dad is at a business dinner right now, but I'll edit this post with a second update when he comes home, because I'm going to tell him everything that's been said. I don't know if he'll care yet, but I'll tell him all the suggestions you guys gave me in the comments, and tell him I'm worried about Ben. Also, because I might not have been clear in my original post, I said that I live with my parents. With that, I only mean my dad. It's not been long since my mum stopped living with us, so in the heat of the moment I wrote the wrong thing. My sister Ava used to have an apartment one town away, but because of COVID she lost her job, meaning she couldn't pay rent anymore. She went back to school and has a different job now, but it's entry level and living costs are crazy where we live, so she's still at home. My other sister Vic has a dorm room at her university, but her roommates are all jerks, so she prefers staying at our apartment when she doesn't have 8 AM classes. Ben still lives with his parents. Why, I don't know. Also, I don't know why they never stay at his place. That's one of the things I wanted to ask Ava, but she apparently thinks I'm the villain here, so... And lastly, we do have a second bathroom, but it only has a toilet and a sink, so it's not as terrible as some people think it is in the comments. Also, we all have our own rooms, they're just small. Now for a couple more comments. Okay, it's looking more like the boyfriend is homophobic. OP replies, honestly, that's also what I've been thinking. I don't want a stereotype based on looks, but he also seems like the typical homophobic jerk purely because of the stuff he wears and does. Maybe he's in the closet. Opie says, I don't want to say it, because I don't want to come across as one of those queer guys, but that's also what I was worried about. We'll see. Okay, on to the last update. Sorry it took me a bit to post this, but I talked to my dad. When he stepped through the door, I immediately asked him if I could talk to him about something, and he was really confused what it's about. He actually asked me if I wanted to tell him I had a girlfriend or boyfriend, haha. So we sat down in the living room and I asked him if he knew what happened yesterday, but he said he only knew that Ava was mad at me, nothing more. I told him everything and he was extremely shocked, and also kind of mad. The first thing he suggested was also that Ben's upset, because 2 days before Ben complained about me, I had friends over and cuddled with one of my male friends while watching a movie, and apparently he seemed annoyed by that. The second suggestion he had was just that he had disliked me for whatever other reason, and that's why he was mad and called me disgusting. He went into Ava's room to talk to her about it, and I don't know what was said, but he came out like half an hour later and told me that Ben wasn't welcome to sleep over anymore. Of course, I asked him what happened during the conversation, but he was really vague about the entire thing. I'm going to make Vic try and talk to Ava to find out what's going on, because now I'm actually really curious as to what happened. Sorry it's not that satisfying of an end for today. Also, is it fine if I just keep adding onto this post, or should I make a new one? I've had Reddit for a while, but I've never posted properly before this. Okie dokie folks, yeah, and that's the last update we've got so far. Honestly, yeah, I'm going to jump onto what that comment said. It sounds like the guy's homophobic. And judging on the outcome, it sounds like the dad figured that out when he went and talked to the sister as well. Anyway, looks like that's the last that he'll see of him. Anyway, let's go to our next story. Okay, this one was posted on the Relationship Advice subreddit. It was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, I, 25 male, have been on a few dates with a trans person, 25 male to female. Is there any acceptable way to ask if they've had bottom surgery or not? We met on Hinge and have been on 4 dates so far. They've all went really well, and for the next date she suggested dinner and a movie at my house. Seeing as sex is now a possibility, I feel like I need to know whether or not she's had bottom surgery. Having sex with someone who has a penis is a definite hard boundary for me, and I think it would be better to ask her now than to risk the chance of having to turn her down at my house. So essentially I'm looking for advice on the best way to ask her what her situation is downstairs without upsetting her. Oh man, I'd have no idea how to approach this. Let's look at the comments. Choosing the time and place would be important. It should be neutral territory so that either of you can easily walk away if there's a deal breaker. I recommend saying that you don't want to waste her time and that you feel you have to let her know that nothing sexual is going to work for you if she still has a penis. She's been open about being trans, so I would absolutely start the conversation. I think directness is important. Don't be too vague. Hey girl, you still packing that thing or nah? Just be open and honest. She clearly likes you. Just tell her you really like her as a person and have been having a blast, but you're now getting to the point that you can tell physical intimacy is on the horizon, and you need to have an open and honest conversation about it if she still has a penis and what her expectations are sexually. I straight up just asked my trans girlfriend before we started officially dating. Asked over text after she asked me if I wanted to become sexually active over text. We both did that so there wouldn't be a weird confrontation if I wasn't interested, or if the bottom surgery question made her uncomfortable. It didn't matter to me whether she had surgery or not, but it was this exactly. Quote, I know you said you wanted us to get to know each other more physically, and I agree 100%. I'm very attracted to you. I just need to know a few things before we do that. One being, I'm not on birth control. Have you had bottom surgery? I always buy condoms, so I know they're around, and don't want to start birth control if I don't need to. Also, I was wondering about your last STD test. I recently had a HIV test. You get free Target gift card if you're tested here on campus, but I need to get updated for the other ones. It's been a sec. I also need to finish up my HPV vaccination, but because I'm 20, they're making me do 3 instead of just the 2, so that won't be done until next year. End quote. I would definitely ask your girl over text and talk about sexual preferences and stuff like that. Okay, let's go to an update. I couldn't get the original throwaway account to work again, so I had to make a new account. Hello again everyone. I originally posted asking for advice a while ago and was honestly pretty shocked with the amount of replies I got. Apart from a few crazies on either side, the vast majority of the replies were helpful as well. Given the number of replies originally, I thought people might be interested in an update, so here it is. There were a few questions that kept being asked, so here are my answers. 1. If she doesn't have bottom surgery, why don't you just do anal? Well, I'm not into anal, so I wouldn't be interested in that with a trans woman or a cis woman. 2. Why are you leading her on by going on dates with her before asking about her genitals if that is a hard boundary for you? I think it's rude to ask someone about their genitals before and on the first couple of dates, lol. 3. Why is a penis a deal breaker for you? This seemed to cause some people a lot of offense, and I got some very angry comments and messages about my genital preferences being transphobic and wrong, which seemed to be a very fringe opinion. I can't tell you the specific reason I'm not attracted to penises, presumably the reason that most other guys who consider themselves straight aren't attracted to other penises. 4. Why are you going on dates with trans women if having a penis is a hard boundary for you? I was originally under the impression that most trans women would have bottom surgery, so I didn't think this would be a big problem. I've since learned that most trans women don't actually get bottom surgery, but even so, I think it's still worth taking the time to go on dates with someone and find out, because there are also 100 reasons why I might decide to not date a cis woman after the 4th date. Okay, so as I mentioned above, the main thing I learned from my original post is that the most trans people will never get bottom surgery. I'd been under the impression that basically all trans people will have bottom surgery, which was obviously not true. Knowing this, I decided that I definitely wanted to ask her in advance to prevent any embarrassing moments at my house. I also didn't want to ask her in a public setting in case the question upset her, so I thought the best method would be to text her. Shout out to one user who wrote an amazing message which I ended up using. Hey, I've been really enjoying our date so far a lot. I've lately been thinking about it and thought I should let you know that I do have some boundaries around sex relating to genitalia. I feel like we should discuss this before we go any further, to make sure we're not sexually incompatible on a fundamental level. As most people predicted, she wasn't offended, and she actually had been planning on telling me the next time we met. The upshot is that she hasn't had bottom surgery yet, but she is planning to have the operation and is actually on the waiting list. We live in the UK, so the procedure is free. However, she told me she'd been on the waiting list for 3 years and is expecting another year wait before she can get the procedure done. She also told me that if we wanted to continue dating, she would be fine with not doing any sexual stuff that involved anything below her waist until she had fully transitioned. I told her that's absolutely fine with me, and she came around to my house for dinner and a movie like we had planned. I'm not going to go into details, but I'll say we did end up fooling around a little bit, and it was honestly amazing. She ended up staying the night at my house, and I asked her the next morning if she wanted to be official or exclusive with me, and she said yes. So she's now my girlfriend, and everything is going great. Yesterday we met up together with a few of my friends, and they all really like her, so I'm very optimistic that it's going to work out between us. Alrighty, and that's that. Yeah, so it turns out there was no harm in just straight up asking her. Communication is key, once again. Anyway, give me your thoughts and we'll go to our next story. Okay, well, jumping back to Am I the A-hole? This one was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, Am I the a-hole for not saving my girlfriend's driver's license and refusing to drive her to and from work? My, 28 male, girlfriend, 26, is always late. Always, no matter if it's 5 minutes up the road or catching a plane. Before we get into it, no, she isn't on the autism spectrum. She doesn't have ADHD or time blindness. She just dawdles, all the time. She snoozes her alarm at least 3 times every morning, then lays there going through her social media. Eventually she gets up and takes a long shower, dresses, which takes her forever, and she usually sits wrapped in a towel on her phone, then lingers over her coffee. 9 times out of 10 she's running late for work and ends up speeding to make it on time. Naturally, she's gotten a number of speeding tickets. I've tried to help her, example putting her phone where she can't reach it from bed so she has to get up to snooze it, but she literally just grabs it and goes back to bed. You try to get her to move and she just digs in her heels and takes even longer. Her response to people calling out her lateness is, better late than dead on time. Anyway, again, she was running even later than normal for work and really had to speed to make it. A week goes by and sure enough, massive speeding fine in the mail. She now has to hand in her driver's license because she's gotten so many demerit points, she'll be without one for 6 months. Instead of just dealing with it, she tells me, I'll need you to cop this one and say you were driving so I don't lose my license. And of course I refused, telling her she needs to live with the consequences of her actions and maybe she should stop speeding and wake up earlier. This argument went on for a few days until she finally conceded, then proceeds to tell me, well, you'll have to drive me to and from work until I get my license back. And I tell her I won't be doing that. Her work is literally in another direction than my work is from home, and doing so would add another 2 hours of driving per day. She says it shouldn't matter as my work has flexible hours, but I stood my ground and refused, and said she can take public transport. There's literally a bus stop 2 minutes walk from our house, and the bus stops maybe a 5-minute walk from her work, and it's quite regular. She said she hates public transport and refuses to ride it, so I said then it's an Uber for her, or organise a carpool, but bottom line, it's not my responsibility. She called me an a-hole and is giving me the silent treatment. Said a decent boyfriend would go to those lengths for her, and that it's only 6 months. So, am I the a-hole for not saving her license and refusing to drive her to and from work for 6 months? Okay, let's see what the comments think. Not the a-hole, but why are you even with this girl? Not only is she refusing to improve herself, but she has also attempted to drag you into her mess that has legal consequences. She's even blaming you for refusing to take responsibility of her own problem that she seems actively avoiding to work on. Not the a-hole. She doesn't give a crap about other people's time. She doesn't give a crap about the safety of others on the road. She doesn't give a crap about your driving record if you cop the points. I could go on. She clearly doesn't care about anyone but herself, so why are you with her? Geez, comments didn't hold back. Let's look at the first update. Wow, I wasn't expecting such a response, and definitely not everyone being on my side. She told me all her friends think I'm the a-hole, which is a big part of why I came here in the first place. After seeing the responses here, I messaged a few of them, and the ones she actually did contact said not the a-hole. As for why I'm still with her, I'm starting to question that myself. I've not been really happy with her the last few months, and this is starting to make me question the entire relationship. And now for another update. So today I asked her to look at the train and bus timetables, and she hit me with, paraphrasing, "Oh my god, you seriously aren't going to help me? You really expect me to catch public transport? Blah blah blah." Reflecting on this and past behaviour and her attitude towards the whole thing, I'm going to break up with her. Thank you everyone for your help. And on to the last update. I've certainly had more pleasant experiences in life. She didn't take it well, lots of yelling and screaming, then doing a complete 180 and crying and begging, trying the sympathy card. You know I can't afford a place on my own. True, I own the house and don't charge her rent, then promising she'll do better and change. I pointed out to her this is not the first or even the 10th time this has been brought up to her, and that I'm no longer happy in the relationship. I listed a number of issues as well, and she started to call me an a-hole and listed my issues, to which I responded, "Well then, I guess it is best if we break up," which didn't go down well. She moved in with a friend temporarily, and I've told her I'm going no contact. I will let her friend know when she has mail etc. delivered here, but for now I think it's best we don't talk to each other. Her friend said she's carpooling to work with a co-worker, but as usual she's always a few minutes late than when the co-worker is there to pick her up, lol. To be honest, it's a massive relief. I didn't realise how stressful being with her truly was until now, and while I'm still down, I think the future is bright ahead. Okay guys, and that's the end of that one. Give me your thoughts down below. Yeah, she honestly sounded like a bit of a nightmare, and lazy at that. Anyway, give me your thoughts, and that's it from me today. Hope you guys enjoyed those stories. Thanks for making it to the end, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good day. Cheers. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my stepdaughter with her baby? I, female 38, married my husband, Sam, male 47, 5 years ago. Sam always knew I did not want to have children of my own. He was fine with it. He has a daughter, Leia, female 25. His wife died when Leia was 10 years old, and I met him when she was 15. I didn't meet her till after a year of dating. She was a sweet young adult, and we got along great. I didn't move in with Sam till Leia left for college though. Leia got pregnant last year. Her boyfriend did not want to keep the baby, but she wanted to keep it. He broke up with her. Leia moved back in with us because she could not afford her lifestyle without him. She worked as a teacher and he was the breadwinner. I had concerns about how she was going to raise a child on a teacher's salary by herself. I suggested getting him to pay child support. She did not want that. Sam thought I should stay out of it. Fine. But once she had the baby around 4 months back, Leia seemed to realise having a baby is not the sunshine and rainbows she thought it was. She barely got any sleep during the last 4 months. All the while Sam was helping her with the baby, while I did almost all the chores myself. Now her leave is ending. She did not want to leave the baby at daycare or with a nanny. Sam and I both work as well. She asked if I could stay home with the baby. I said no. First, it is not my baby, and I never wanted to raise a child. Second, I have work. She asked Sam who asked me to do it instead. I refused, stating the reasons again. Sam couldn't stay home because he earned more than me and covered more bills. I asked why Leia can't stay home with the baby herself. She said how she was young and had to build a career. I said many people take breaks to raise kids, and she broke down crying about how she was so tired all the time being a mum, and she needed something else in her life too. Sam feels bad for her and thinks we should help her. I suggested she pay for a nanny with her income, but Leia doesn't want strangers looking after her baby. Both of them are pressuring me to stay home with the baby so she can go to work. I'm standing firm on my decision. Leia said yesterday how she wished her mum was alive since she would have had her back. She said I didn't love her, and my husband is also mad at me. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my stepdaughter with her baby? Oh, come on. Surely you can't just have a kid, then realise you don't want it after the fact and try and, pass it off to someone else because you don't want it. Yeah, not the a-hole for me. Let's look at the comments. Not the a-hole. She didn't ask you to help. She asked you to pretty much give up your career and raise your step-grandchild. Help would have been if she said, "Can you see about maybe watching the baby when my school has evening staff meetings?" Or, "Can you and Dad maybe work out your schedules so the baby spends as little time in daycare, like doing a late start for work and dropping her off on the way to work, and I can pick her up after school?" Many daycare centres give discounts to teachers because they know how hard they work and little they get paid. Also, once she knew she was going to keep the baby, that was when she should have started asking her co-workers and friends for childcare recommendations. I wouldn't say that to her now, as I'm sure she knows it. Explain to her that you're not refusing to help with your granddaughter, but that you need to focus on your career as well, and that you will help her come up with a plan. She needs to find reliable childcare for when she is teaching during the day, and I'm sure someone at the school can help her. She needs to get child support from her ex to help pay for the costs. It's his child too, and he can pay child support without having visitation rights. You and your husband should then sit down with her and figure out a good childcare option for when she is working, and what emergency plans will be if, say, she has to stay late for a staff meeting or travel overnight for a conference. I can 100% guarantee you her late mother would agree with this. Also, don't take to heart what she is saying. Postpartum depression can be very difficult to cope with, and I promise she still likes you, and is just dealing with a lot right now. Not the a-hole. This is Leia's baby that she alone chose to have. That doesn't obligate you to change your life to suit her desires. The whole business of saying you don't love her because you won't quit your job to watch her baby is so manipulative and messed up, and I'm shocked your husband is siding with her. If I were you, I'd sit down privately with your husband and remind him that Leia is the one that chose to have this baby, and she is solely responsible for it, that you never signed up to be a full-time babysitter, and it's unreasonable to expect you to quit your job, and that you're disappointed and hurt that he is not understanding of that. Not the a-hole. Leia needs to put her baby daddy on child support and take off the rose-coloured glasses. She chose to have a child by a deadbeat. Why would you stay home to raise her child? She's getting more than enough help as is. Opie says, her mum was a stay-at-home parent, maybe that's why. So in her mind, if you were her real mum and a stay-at-home parent, you would be raising this baby she chose to have? I guess so. Another commenter says, I'm going to go against the grain and say you're the a-hole. Kind of. Too many people here on Reddit are selfish and childless and don't seem to realise raising a kid on one's own is extremely hard. You've definitely had years to see this kind of situation coming, and seems you kind of stuck your head in the sand, hoping it wouldn't happen. In the end, it takes a village to raise a kid, and like it or not, you're a major part of this family now, and you need to help out. Sure, it's not your responsibility to quit your job and take over predominant child-rearing responsibility, but you certainly should help out, and you should feel a little bad for trying to avoid it at all costs. Opie replies, I would think otherwise. People are not childless, they are child-free. They choose to not have children. They realise how hard raising a child is and don't want to take that task. It is self-serving, but I doubt people who are having children are doing that for selfless reasons. Unless a person is adopting a child to provide for the child, people having children are having them out of their own selfish desire to have children. It's two sides of a coin. Choosing to have a child is a choice the parents make. No one else made that choice. Parents need a village, but no one else is obligated to provide the village. Choosing to be each other's village is good, but forcing people who chose to not have children because they realized how hard it is to help raise your child that you chose to have is more selfish. The commenter replies, "If that's her home too, then she's effectively stepdaughter's mum too, and any mum that turns to run from her daughter during her time of greatest need is a deadbeat effing mum. If she is family, then you should be a contributing part of the family and help raise the new addition to said family. That isn't what Opie's doing though." Opie replies, "You are right. I was not physically caring for the baby. You know what I was doing? Every single chore in the house, including cooking for them, cleaning after them, and their laundry. After working entire days and splitting almost all the bills, I did not pay for the baby items or furniture, but I was splitting bills for groceries, electricity, and water, the stuff they both, Leia and her baby, used, and Leia did not pay anything towards. I have bought numerous clothes and toy sets for the baby. I didn't add it into baby cost because I consider that gifts. Help comes in many forms. Her meals that she didn't have to cook, laundry she had done, cleaning up and grocery shopping she never had to worry about, was all help that I gave. I wouldn't have pointed it out except for this comment. I never had a mum-daughter relationship with her. I'm just 13 years older than her, never been a mum or parent myself, and chose not to. We were friends. She never treated me like a parent either, and as part of her family I helped out in any and all ways that I can, until they demanded I sacrifice my life and career for them. So if you think that equals a deadbeat stepmom, no one can correct you." Okay, let's go to the update. First of all, thank you for your support. I needed it more than I realized. Your replies, advice, and suggestions gave me a lot to think about. I was taking this situation independently and not really seeing the whole picture. I had some tough conversations with my husband and stepdaughter. I showed my husband the post and replies. He was upset I posted about this in social media, but I convinced him it's anonymous and we would not have any ramifications. The sad truth is, even with overwhelming number of not the a-holes, he refused to see the point. He accepts I've always been true about my boundaries, but he still needs me to step up and help out more, be more understanding. I realized that the fact is he sees his daughter as his baby girl and me as the adult in this situation, so he needs me to act like an adult and support the child. I tried to make him realize she is not a child, she made her own decisions, and she needs to be an adult. He said I won't get how a parent would feel and he needs to be there for her. I realized his long-term plan is to keep supporting her as long as he can, and she wants it. To be frank, I sort of respect his stand. A father wanting to be there for his daughter and wanting to live for her is admirable, but that is not the life I envisioned. Loving grandmother that babysit occasionally? Sure, but raising Leia and her baby? Nope. Before we decided on anything extreme, we had a talk with Leia as well, to know what her plans are. We revisited the topic of child support, and this time her dad was adamant to know why. Your replies made him concerned, I think. Well, apparently the reason is Leia is still in love with him. She is scared pushing a court case and responsibility on him on a decision she made will scare him away. She is still holding on to hope he will come back. We don't think she is being realistic, but have decided to table that talk for later, since Sam is already ready to fund the baby's life, and child support can be demanded with back pay when she decides to follow up. We offered her multiple solutions, such as lesser work hours, career change, nanny, daycare. She did not accept any offer. She loves the school she works at and does not want to leave it. She claims reducing hours will impact her career trajectory, and since she wants to work, she might as well work full-time. She does not want to leave the baby with strangers, or nanny or daycare, and is refusing to hear it. She wants her baby to grow up with family, feeling loved, and she can't be at peace unless she knows one of us is with the baby. Sam is refusing to cut down hours himself since he can't afford bills himself. Let me clarify. He had refinanced this house to pay for her college education, did not want her to have any loans. I'd suggested we downside from this 3-bedroom house to a 1-bedroom one, and we could both afford. He wanted to have space for his daughter. I understood that, but I couldn't afford to pay for it. We came to an understanding I would pay for it, and won't have any rights to the house either. That is his biggest payment. We split rest of the expense proportionate to our income till Leia moved back in. She doesn't help financially. I contributed to normal day-to-day expenses, but all baby-related expenses are being met by Sam. If Sam stops working or reduces hours, he won't be able to do all these. I would take up being the breadwinner, but we would have to downsize, and Leia would at least have to cover all baby-related expenses herself. Neither of them wants that. The conclusion of all these discussions were the same. They needed me to stay home with the baby, and Sam wouldn't be putting anything to my savings or retirement funds because he won't have funds for that. He also thinks it isn't necessary since I can just go back to work when the baby starts school. Long story short, I left. I packed all my clothes and stuff and everything I had in my car, and I'm now crashing at a friend's home. I don't have any rights to the house or own any furniture there, so leaving was easy. I have booked an appointment with my lawyer. I think this is the best decision I can take for myself. Both Sam and Leia called me selfish a-hole for leaving. I guess it will have to be this way. Alrighty folks, and that's the end of that story. Yeah, I think sometimes you just gotta look out for yourself, and the sacrifices they wanted OP to make were not gonna benefit her in any way. What are your thoughts about this one? Let me know down below. Anyway, let's go to the next story. Okay, this one was written on the True Off My Chest subreddit. It was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, "My boyfriend of 8 years told me he wanted to open our relationship. I, 28 female, met my boyfriend, 29 male, many years ago through some friends. He was living in another place, on the other side of the country. We instantly took a liking to each other and became boyfriend and girlfriend. In the first year of our relationship, it was distant. Both agreed after I finished my schooling, I would go live with him. I had to leave everything behind. Friends and family, a perfect job offering with an amazing salary with this company I had interned in previous years, which I loved by the way. I thought he was worth it. So I moved to where he lives. Everything was good. We talked about our future, both agreed we'd get married at 30. We focused on our jobs and ourselves. We fought but could never be mad at each other for longer than a few hours. We bought a house together with a nice yard, the perfect home for our future together. Last night, while we were eating dinner, my boyfriend told me he wanted to talk about something. I said, all right, and we proceeded into the conversation. He started off by saying he loved me and that I'm perfect to him. I thought he was going to propose to me. Instead, he told me that he is polyamorous, that he had just realized that, and that he wanted to open our relationship. I asked if I did anything wrong for him wanting to open the relationship, wondering if I didn't satisfy him enough emotionally and sexually. He said no, and that it's just who he is. I told him that I only believed monogamy. I can't personally see myself with anyone but him. He told me that I was being ignorant when I told him I only wanted him. I backtracked into what I was saying, so I've asked him if he already thought of another woman that he wants instead of me. He tried to deny it, but he said there was a woman he met, that she's also poly, that they never did anything and that I shouldn't worry about it. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what to say, so I finished dinner in silence. That night, I chose to sleep in the guest room. I couldn't bear to look at him. I started thinking of all the things and opportunities I had missed, like my dream job, my friends, missing life achievements of my nieces and nephews, and not spending enough time with my mother before she passed away. All of the 8 years I had just went away and left a sour taste in my mouth. I regret the life I had in the past 8 years, keep thinking of who I would have been, what I would be doing. This morning, he didn't go to work because he said he felt like crap because I slept separately. So we talked about everything. I told him that I cannot be with someone like him, that I didn't want to enter an open relationship. I told him I wanted to leave. He started crying and said he couldn't change who he is. Why I would say that I regret our time together. I told him because he wasted my time and our future together just disappeared. I told him it would take me time to learn to not love him anymore. I thanked him for the past 8 years together. He said he takes it all back and that he'll stop talking to her, that he doesn't want our relationship to end. But I can't do that to someone I love. I cannot hold someone back from becoming who they are. If he is poly, I don't care, but it's just not who I am. I've packed all the things that I own. I'm going to move back home, live with a friend. I applied for a job I actually liked. I'm sort of embarrassed to admit to family and friends why our relationship ended, because it feels like I wasn't good enough for him. I feel like I wasted my 20s for him. Damn, that's rough, but OP seems to have her head screwed on and kind of knows what she wants, so that's good. Let's look at the comments. Refreshing to hear the account of someone who hasn't come here to ask Reddit how to change who they are and adapt to the new joke of a reality their partner has forced upon them. Good for OP. Good for you for leaving. You will find someone who wants you, and only you. From what I've learned about people who suddenly bring up wanting to open a relationship after being monogamous with someone since the beginning of their long-term relationship, it's almost always because they met someone, and they just want to legally cheat and not suffer the consequences of cheating. Also, he says he'll stop talking to her, so he was already talking to her about this, and sounds like he was easily persuaded of the idea of being with another woman. Oof. Glad you got out before he physically cheated. Sending so much hugs and lots of luck to you in your new chapter of life. OP replies, "That's what I thought too. There had to be something more going on between them. I didn't even want to ask him how long he was talking or how they met. I loved him. I dedicated my life to him so foolishly, but loving him did teach me all sorts of things. It's what made me who I am. Thanks for the kind words, friend." He can change. He's already changed after meeting this girl. He wasn't polyamorous before. You were, and you're mono. He is the one who has to respect it. He knew it for 8 years. If they want to enter into this kind of relationship, okay, but they can't judge you because you don't want it. Edit to add that he already cheated. He emotionally betrayed you. He had discussed this major change in his life without even telling you nothing, just when he concluded you had to take it without any other option. OP says, "I know. Main reason why I broke up with him. He already formed some sort of emotional connection with her. I can't even bring myself to be with someone for so long. Meanwhile, I talk to someone else. It just feels wrong and not right." He's not poly. He just wants to F around and have someone to come to at home every night and not be alone. Good for you for respecting yourself and to not let him gaslight you into a thing you don't want. Much love to you. Yeah, 100% with all those comments. Let's go to the update. Thought I'd give an update of what happened. It's been well over a month since my ex-boyfriend wanted to open our relationship. I've moved away and now I have my own place. My new job is much better than my last one. Everything has been good for me, spending a lot of time with family. When we told our mutual friends and our families why we ended the relationship, they thought it was a crappy situation and were on my side. For the house that I've recently purchased with my ex, we decided to put it up for sale and split everything evenly. I haven't talked to him since we broke up, but I've heard he started dating the girl he told me about, which I knew was coming, so I wasn't really surprised. I'm not really in the mood for dating at the moment. Probably take some time for myself. In the end, I am happy. I've learned a lot, and everything has been good. Am I the a-hole for being ticked at what my wife said to my niece? My sister and brother-in-law were abusive parents to my niece, Charlotte. I always tried to protect her, but my wife and I were only able to get custody 3 years ago. We adopted her, and she's a good kid at heart, but she still struggles a lot. She's still in therapy and has come so far, but finds it difficult to accept unconditional love and that kids don't have to be perfect. While she's usually fine with my wife and I, she still sometimes tends to see our daughter, Chloe, as ungrateful and spoiled. I've worked really hard on this, and it's a lot better, but sometimes it comes up in their teenage squabbles. It's not perfect, but the girls generally get along. Last Friday they had an issue. I was at work, so this is based on what I was told after. Chloe was refusing to do any of her chores and arguing about it with my wife. Charlotte jumped in and basically called Chloe lazy and said that she should be a better daughter like her. Apparently my wife got ticked off and told her off. She reminded her that she was lucky we were taking care of her and to stay out of it. From there, it got bad. My wife says that Charlotte was extremely rude about Chloe, but she also admits she told Charlotte that we didn't have to take care of her, and that basically, unlike Chloe, we can send her back to her parents if she keeps it up. Ignoring the fact we legally cannot, that's just completely effed up. They ended their fight with Charlotte just going to my parents for that night, and she's been really upset and withdrawn since. When I got home, my wife filled me in, and I was honestly pretty furious. The first thing that came to mind was, "What the F is wrong with you?" Which admittedly wasn't a productive response, but I was honestly just floored. The issue is that Charlotte doesn't get that a kid deserves unconditional love, even if they're not perfect. So you frickin' tell her that you'll kick her out if she doesn't behave? All the progress I worked with her for is going to be shut back again. I was mad and we fought about it. I get she can be difficult, but that was inappropriate. However, she still refused to apologize or anything. I've tried to talk to her and explain that we love her and that it wasn't meant that way it was said. But my wife is just accusing me of babying and favoriting Charlotte. Apparently I'm being unreasonable thinking what she did was disgusting, that I should care more about Chloe, as if this is a competition. I'm still honestly pretty ticked at her, while she just claims I'm unreasonable and being a crap dad to Chloe. Let's see what the comments think. Not the a-hole. Your wife said a effed up thing and really messed up with Charlotte. Your wife needs to apologize and looks like you're going to have individual long talks with everyone. Opie replies, That's exactly what I think. I honestly don't know how she could say it, let alone keep defending it. I've been trying to talk to the girls about it, but Charlotte is still icing me out other than apologizing repeatedly. Not the a-hole. You were correct here. It doesn't sound like you're favoring Charlotte at all. You aren't condoning or excusing her behavior. Your issue is with how your wife deals with the behavior, which I agree was completely inappropriate. Your wife, and you, adopted the child. She is your child. She can't be given back, and threatening to return her to an abusive situation is basically abuse in and of itself. Your wife should never suggest such a thing, and should be ashamed that those words came out of her mouth. Opie replies, I agree, thank you. There's no world where I would ever give her back. I love her way too much to ever do that. I honestly don't know why she doesn't see it like you said. Not the a-hole. Wow. Your wife threatened to send your niece back to the parents that abused her if she didn't remember her place in your house. That poor girl has been abused and was beginning to think she was safe in your home. All that hard work is gone. Opie replies, That's the worst part for me, having her go back to this after coming so far out of her shell. It wasn't easy, but she's a good kid. It was basically a stupid sibling squabble. Not the a-hole. A correct response would be, Charlotte, I'm the parent and will handle Chloe. Please apologize for calling her lazy and go hang out in your room while Chloe and I talk. You need to talk with your wife. She obviously doesn't love Charlotte that much, and even in the way you speak about the situation, all the progress I worked on with Charlotte implies that she's actually not that great of a caretaker and doesn't want her. Opie says, It's not that she didn't care, it's just difficult between them. My sister was the primary abuser, so it was a lot more difficult for my wife with her. There's certainly been a lot of progress with them, but it meant I took the brunt of a lot of the work, like therapy and whatnot. Okie dokie, onto the update. First, I want to thank everyone for their responses. It was helpful, even some I disagreed with. While things aren't perfect, they're both good kids and my wife is making amends for what she did. Since then, my wife and I have been in therapy. She's apologized and tried to fix it with Charlotte, but she's lost a lot of trust with what she said. Even now, it's not back to what it was. The therapy is helping, and she realized just how wrong it was. Charlotte has mostly gone back to normal around me, though a bit clingier. I've made it clear I'll always love and be there for her, and I've been making it clear it's unconditional, and she doesn't have to be perfect or deserve it. She's obviously still in therapy and getting help. The girls have had some stupid fights since, but nothing like last time. Charlotte initially distanced herself, but Chloe got her back to normal quicker than my wife and I. She was really there for Charlotte. When she wants to be, she can be really thoughtful. Chloe is doing fine. I made sure to talk to her and she doesn't have an issue with Charlotte. As usual, she basically said Charlotte can be annoying, but she loves her, a normal sister. It's not perfect, but improving. I think my wife's actions were a mistake, but they were from the situation rather than about Charlotte herself. All the little issues built up and she exploded. She didn't realize how much it grew to bother her. She's made it clear she knows Charlotte is our daughter now, and that it was a horrible mistake. We are working to fix it. If she really can't handle it, I'll have to leave for Charlotte's sake, but I think our progress is promising so far. Now, I want to clarify some things. Charlotte did have issues with women. However, this wasn't her being rude per se. The issue was that she was terrified. She would basically be silent and overly obedient, but clearly scared and unwilling to open up. With me, she let her guard down quicker to let me love and help her. For my wife, it took months for more than one-word answers and almost 2 years to stop the fear. Back-talking and interjections were a problem, but because she was comfortable with my wife, not the opposite. I was heavily involved in raising the girls. I didn't leave it to my wife. I just happened to be working late that day. Other days it's my wife working and me with the girls. Further, there are consequences for misbehaving. We just had a bigger issue that night. Overall, thank you for the advice. I hope things keep getting better, even if it's slow. Alrighty folks, and that's the end of that one. A good ending all in all. Give me your thoughts and we'll go to our next story. Okay, this next one's from Relationship Advice. It was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, I, 26 female, am pregnant after a fertility struggle and being told I may never get pregnant. My husband, 42 male, just admitted to having an affair and getting someone else pregnant. Not sure what to do. My husband and I got married 3 years ago. When I was a teenager, I was told that due to medical complications, I may never be able to have children. But after 2 years of trying and fertility treatments, I'm now halfway through my pregnancy with our miracle baby. Unfortunately, because of some complications, I had to cut back on my hours at work. It's very physical. My husband offered to pick up more hours to compensate, so he has been working a lot more in the past 2 months and coming home later. I couldn't see that anything was amiss. Things were the same as they've always been. He always brings home flowers, food, things for the baby, coffee. He's always sending me thoughtful and loving texts through the day. The gaps where he was unreachable were explainable. But this morning he sat me down and gave me news that rocked me. He told me he's been having an affair for the past 6 weeks and that his affair partner just found out that she's pregnant. He said that if she decides to keep the baby, she's going to raise it by herself, and that they mutually agreed to end the relationship already. He wants to make things right. I don't know how things can ever be right again. He just wants to move on from what he is calling his transgression. How do I ever forgive him? How do you deal with the unthinkable? How do I learn to live with the idea that my child's sibling might be out there somewhere, someday? Most importantly, how do I learn to move on like he wants me to? Edit. I have an OB appointment for unrelated medical reasons tomorrow, at which I'll make sure to request extensive testing. I have plans to meet with a lawyer on Monday. I'm talking to my sister to see if I can stay with her. My relationships with much of my family are fractious, but I have a pretty positive relationship with her. I will not be seeking other options other than having my baby due to being pretty far along and having been told in the past I would not conceive. Regardless of what my husband has done, I love my child. Edit 2. I saw my OB on Friday and will hopefully have some test results. Fingers crossed for all negative within the next few days. I will meet the lawyer tomorrow and go from there. My sister advised me to stay in the house that my husband and I co-own until I talk to a lawyer. This has been such an emotionally harrowing time for me. He's acting like everything is normal. All I want to do is sleep. I keep telling myself it'll be over soon. Oh geez, that's the last thing you want to hear when you're pregnant. Let's look at the comments. Personally, the baby would get my maiden name and I'd serve him with divorce papers and child support. How can I move on? I couldn't. I wouldn't be able to get past it. Cheating once would be enough for me to leave forever. He's already trying to gaslight you by downplaying it as a transgression. Even worse that he wasn't using protection with her. He risked getting you AIDS, hepatitis, cancerous HPV, and about 100 other diseases. He risked it even more because your immune system is worse when you're pregnant. That jerk put you and your baby's lives to get his dick wet. Let that sink in. That's not forgivable to me. Cheating is abuse. I guarantee this isn't the only selfish or abusive thing he's done. I wouldn't even be surprised if this wasn't his first affair. It's the first one he got caught. He was still bringing flowers home? Like a sociopath with no conscience? There's a reason that when there's a 15+ year age gap, the divorce rate is up to 95%. Was she even younger than you? Also, I'm sorry you're going through this. No one deserves to be treated like this ever. You need to get her up evidence and get ready to leave, even if it's after the baby is born. You really need to have your provider run every STI test they possibly can, and as soon as they can get you in. There are many diseases that can hurt the baby in utero. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be okay having a baby with a man who just abandoned one. Opie replies, I keep coming back to this. It sounds like she's on the fence about the pregnancy, which is ultimately 100% her choice, but the ease with which he's willing to take the stance of just forgetting the whole thing happened is hard for me. I'm more than halfway through my pregnancy, 23 weeks, so I'm in a different position. Another commenter says, was thinking this exact thing. I'm not getting that he has any fear of losing you. Why? Either he thinks you're easy to control, or not that bright, or desperate to stay with his wife. Which is it? Why isn't he begging you to stay with him? Why does he feel you'll just go along with forgetting that he's cheated on you? Opie says, I think he knows that my initial reaction was going to be that yes, we could fix this, or that I would agree to make things right. I think that he knows that I have so much invested emotionally in this relationship. He is my first real love, my first, well, everything really, and that I'm more likely to fight for what we have than to give it up. Even I'm surprised at how conflicted I feel. Oh man, I wonder what she does. Let's go to the update. Where to begin? First off, the other woman decided to terminate her pregnancy, which was confirmed to me by her. Talking to her was really weird, and didn't answer a lot of questions that I had for her. This is a person who knows me, and has met me a number of times, and I just don't get it. The motivations on both sides don't make any sense to me, and I don't know if they ever will. It helped to learn there was no romantic feelings, but it was still confusing, especially since I perceived my husband and I to have a healthy sex life, as often as 4 to 6 times per week, and I don't really get what's fun or exciting about leaving the boundaries of your marriage. We are in therapy, separately and together. Going separately is helping me to sort out a lot of my own feelings, but I think that going together is essential one way or another as well. He's been cooperative and participatory in therapy. I'm hopeful that we can figure at least some things out. We've had a lot of conversations about why it won't be easy for me to just forgive this, and why I need answers and changes in behaviour, and I do feel like I've been heard. Divorce is not completely off the table, but it's a hard situation to be in, especially in a vulnerable state like being pregnant. I've consulted with a lawyer and made my parameters clear to him, but for right now I want to try to work things out. I know this isn't the update that a lot of people probably hoped for, but for me, I think this is the right choice. Thank you all for your words of encouragement, advice, and perspective. I definitely took a lot of things to heart, and will remember them for a long time. It's very appreciated. Edit. I want to make it clear since people seem confused. Divorce is not off the table. What is off the table right now is trying to make a decision that will affect my life greatly when I'm already in an extremely vulnerable physical and mental position, without making an attempt at healing both on my own and with him. Even if we end up divorced in the end, allowing myself time means that things have a higher chance of being amicable and easier for all of us, especially our child. Oh, I already know all the Redditors are typing furiously in the comments under this one. And rightfully so, to be honest. She seems to refuse to acknowledge that he only came clean because the affair partner was pregnant. And the husband was right. She was too emotionally invested to just call off the marriage right then and there. Yeah, it's kind of sad because you can't help but think that something like this is probably going to happen again. Anyway, give me your thoughts about that one and we'll move on to our next one. Alrighty, this one was written on the Am I the A-hole subreddit. It was written by user Terrible Reserve and it's titled, Am I the a-hole for not telling my new partner about having a vasectomy? Some background. I, 36 male, was married for 8 years and have 1 kid. After they were born, I got a vasectomy, which was 4 years ago, because I'm not interested in having more children. I ended up getting divorced about 2 years ago. Started dating my recent ex, 33 female, a little less than 9 months ago. When we started dating and the kid conversation came up, I was very clear about not wanting any more children, and that will not change. I didn't bring up my vasectomy at that point, partly because I didn't think it mattered, and partly because I didn't think it was their business that early on. Fast forward to this week, she told me she was pregnant. At this point I said the child is unlikely mine and I will not have any involvement in this until a paternity test is done. My reasoning for this is she was supposedly on birth control, and I, in theory, should be sterile, so the odds seem pretty astronomical to me. This obviously turned into a fight. She accused me of being dishonest with her, which I guess a lie of omission isn't being completely honest. Am I the a-hole for not disclosing my vasectomy earlier? Okay, let's look at a few comments. Get a sperm count test done, and get a paternity test. My friend had a child from a man who had a vasectomy. Shock to the both of them as she was still on birth control anyways. DNA confirmed the kid was his. I say test yourself because, unfortunately, vasectomies aren't a certain thing. Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of comments saying how vasectomies aren't 100%. Okay, Opie gives an edit and then a quick update. Edit. Thanks for the numerous replies. I haven't had time to read them all, but to address some common comments. I do plan to get retested, but due to them wanting you to abstain for a few days, it will be about mid next week before I can drop a sample off. That said, I've been tested 3 times since the vasectomy. Initially after the minimum wait time, about a year later when my ex-wife removed her IUD. Finally, about 6 months after the divorce before I started dating. All showed I was still sterile, so not expecting much change there, but who knows, I'll update after. Secondly, I was on the fence about the relationship for the last month or so. Even if the child is mine, I don't have much interest in trying to mend the relationship, though I will try to be a good co-parent and obviously apologise for my strong suggestions of cheating. Finally, I do agree that I probably should have said something when we started having sex. She brought up her being on the IUD, so I didn't bring up my vasectomy. I'm a bit paranoid, so preferred the dual birth control. Yeah, well, depending on his test results, but if it comes back 0, then she either cheated on him, or she's lying about having the kid, to maybe try and get him to change his mind about becoming a parent with her. I don't know, it all seems pretty complicated. Let's look at the update. This isn't much of an update, but thought I would provide since many were curious. Had my sperm count tested and it came back at 0, so not much doubt that I'm in the clear. I had reached out a couple times since the argument to discuss how she wants to do a paternity test and got nothing back. I've been blocked on any shared social media and have not talked to her since the argument. At this point, I don't see any need to reach out anymore, and will wait and see if she tries to take me to court. Oh, there you go. Her silence speaks 1,000 words. I mean, the audacity of the ex to be mad at him for lying about the vasectomy when she was either cheating or lying about the whole pregnancy anyway. God, some people.
Me with my wife, and she informed me at sister's wedding she had slept with the best man. The time frame is important here. We've been married for 3 years. We were together as a couple for 2 years before that, so we've been together for about 5 years. 2 weekends ago, her sister got married, and of course my wife was in the wedding party. So as you would expect, she spent the 2 weeks prior to the wedding helping her sister get everything ready. No big deal at all. She kept me informed, and I knew this was going to happen. She took that Wednesday to Friday off of work to help her, and in fact stayed with her for 3 days. I certainly know her sister, but I barely know the guy who is now my brother-in-law. In fact, I only met him a few times, but he seems nice enough. I show up Saturday morning a few hours before the ceremony in hopes of stealing just a few minutes to see her, not wanting to intrude on the day since I know she is busy, but I hadn't seen her since Tuesday. She sees me outside of her parents' house and sends her brother out to tell me that she'll come out and see me at the car, which I thought was odd, but whatever. She finally comes out and sits in the seat next to me and gives me a kiss, but instead of acting happy to see me or whatever, she tells me that she has to talk to me and she doesn't want it to ruin her sister's day. She informs me that at the reception, if I still want to go, I might hear some things about the best man and her, and she didn't want it to be awkward or weird. I just kind of sat there, stunned. She said that about 4 years ago she had a fling with him, and that it didn't mean anything, but she was aware that by nature I'm somewhat jealous, and she wanted me to know in advance so that if I heard something that I wouldn't be surprised. Again, I just kind of sat there. This was not how I thought my morning would go, but I told her I appreciated knowing it, and that it certainly wasn't a big deal now. She went back in the house, and I went to eat lunch and decided to meet her at the church. As I'm eating and reading my phone, it dawns on me. She said she had a fling with him 4 years ago, and we've been together for 5. My first reaction was to blow it off and think that she just told me the wrong time, But the more I thought about it, the more I started to remember about a year and a half of us being together, she had a phase where she was really sketchy about her behaviour, wasn't available when she normally was, and went on 2 weekend camping trips that were with friends from work. Of course, I'm a little knotted up over this, but I know I have a long day ahead of me. I go to the wedding and sit there watching everything. After the wedding, they have a line that you walk by and congratulate the bride and groom, and the wedding party is standing in the line as well. My wife is standing with some other guy. I don't know him at all, but the best man was there, and I just went down the line and acted like no big deal. Get to the reception, and it takes forever for them to come because of the photos. She finally gets there and sits with me. I decided not to say anything, as I didn't want to distract from the day, but instead of just letting it go, she then tells me that each of the groomsmen and bridesmaids are going to dance, and that she's going to be dancing with him. I ask why, when she was not his partner for the party, and she said that the maid of honour and her partner were actually married and wanted to dance with each other. At this point, I'm a little more than perturbed, but I try and not let it show. Thankfully, I was smart enough to not drink because I freely admit I'm an angry drunk, so I know when not to even partake. She talks to everyone around her, and then the dance comes and he comes over and extends his arm and she gets up. I try not to watch, and in fact I make it a point not to. She comes back with him in tow, and they're joking like the best of friends. She decides that it would be a good idea to introduce us, and while I didn't say to F off like I wanted to, my greeting to him was probably less than cordial. But it did not deter him from sitting and talking with her for a few minutes. The more they sat and talked and reminisced about old times and places, the madder I got. Eventually I got up and went to the bathroom, and when I came back he was gone. She decided to tell me that she thought I was rude, which was not what I was all about hearing at the moment. I told her that this wasn't the time or place to talk about it, but rest assured we would talk later. She sat there and then said that she's going to change clothes, and as soon as she got back she was telling her sister that we were leaving because I'd ruined her day, but she didn't want me to ruin her sister's day as well. I told her that I was perfectly capable of not being a bother to her or her sister the rest of the day, and that I did not want to be the cause of any drama, so I would prefer to just stay. She went and changed clothes, and then came back all in a huff. Now understand, I've not said a word to her. I even shook the other guy's hand. I guess I just looked miserable, so that's what she's basing this off. She was adamant about not staying, and so I said that if she really wanted to go, we could go, but if she'd rather stay, I'd be happy to stay, or if she would like, since I came in my own car, I would leave so she could stay. She at first said that we should stay, but then said if I couldn't act any better, I should leave. I asked how I was acting, and she said it was obvious I was trying to be like a silverback gorilla wanting to fight. I didn't know whether to laugh in her face or be offended. I went back in and sat down while she mingled with the other guests. I talked with her brother for a while, but then ultimately ended up back at our table talking with her grandma. We leave at the same time, and I arrived home just before she did. I was sitting in the living room waiting on her when she came in and did not beat around the bush. I simply asked her to retell me the story about this other guy, and she said it word for word like before. After sitting and looking at her for a time, I just said, "Are you sure about the time frame?" And she said she was. I then reminded her that we'd been together for 5 years, so this fling was well over a year into our being together. What happened next, I can't really put into words. Instead of being flustered or denying anything, she simply said, "I know." So I asked her to explain, and she tells me that they worked together, and that it was just a physical thing, and she felt like we weren't in a great place at the time, and that she'd never had any feelings for him, and never had any real intentions of leaving me. She just was having some fun for a few weekends. She said that it was probably a mistake on her part to tell me now, but she didn't want me to get blindsided. I did not take this the way she thought I would, I guess. We had a very large argument and ended when she told me I was being a child about all of this, that we were married and this happened way before that, and our life together now has nothing to do with him or that time. Well, 2 things. 1, I adamantly disagree about this has no bearing on us. She frickin' cheated on me and doesn't even have the goddamn decency to feel guilty about it. 2, I hate being told I'm childish when I get upset over something. It pees me off to no end, because that is her way of acting superior to me. I told her I needed time to think, and she told me there was nothing to think about. We loved each other and this didn't change anything. That was 2 weeks ago and I'm still not over it. She's been trying the past few days to get me to talk to her, but I admit that for whatever reason I'm not viewing her the same as I did before this. Part of me is like that this is stupid, It happened a few years ago and we're married now and there hasn't been any problems at all. But then part of me is like, I just found out she cheated on me, and it hurts like a mother effer, and what makes it worse is that instead of trying to understand how I feel, she's trying to guilt me into just not even thinking about it. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry for the length, I probably should have cut out some of the wedding stuff, but it all came out at once. Let's look at the comments. Hey, I had this fling with this dude about a year into our relationship. I was going to take it to the grave, but now he's the best man, so in case I get caught, I'll just tell you now. Oh, and you'll get to meet him face to face too. Not until after I'm done dancing with him though. What? Funny how she thinks the mistake is telling you now, not cheating in the first place. The blaming is really great too. You are the one who ruined her day at her sister's wedding. You are the one being childish. She seems like a very accountable and trustworthy person. This is just crappy. She's known throughout her sister's engagement who the best man was going to be, and only lays it on you the morning of the wedding? And who is immature enough to gossip about something that happened 4 years ago at someone else's wedding? I commend you for not making a scene at your sister-in-law's wedding, even if your wife would have deserved it for this stunt. You get to decide what you're okay with or not. You are validated in being ticked. It's up to you where to go from here. Her nonchalant attitude is completely unacceptable. You say that she cheated on you 1 year into your relationship, and you were married after year 2. Did you ask her to marry you around the time she was cheating on you? Nice of her to leave out the fact she was boning another guy while you were proposing. Now for an update. First, I want to clarify something from my first post that I really did not spell out very well. It doesn't have any real bearing on anything, but for some reason it bugs me that I made this part sort of murky. The maid of honour, not my wife, was married to the groomsman who my wife walked down the aisle with. There were some people who felt my wife was trying to arrange the dance, but I do know for a fact that this part was legit. However, it doesn't mean she didn't try and offer to let them dance or any other form of manipulation, but I just wanted to try and clear that part up a little. I'm here because I've gotten honest to God over 40 requests for an update since last week. Thank you for your guys' concern on this, and I wish I had some real ballsy statement to make about how I stood tall and kicked her to the curb, but sadly that's just not what happened. To be blunt, I'm in limbo. There have been developments, but all they've done is make it harder for me to decide. Last week I was mostly angry, then as the weekend progressed I became mostly sad. I want to be able to hate her and flip that switch that tells me I'm being walked on and I'm a sucker, but it's just very hard for me to do that because I still love her and this is ripping me apart. Here is what has happened of any consequence. She finally came to the realization that I was just not going to get over this. This then brought her to the realization that I might want out of the marriage. This then brought on her near nervous breakdown from her. Someone, hell, a lot, from the first post stated that she'd try and manipulate me like that, and believe me, I was taking those words to heart when I thought she was having crocodile tears, but it soon became apparent to me that she wasn't acting or faking. She was having a legitimate panic attack. This led to an ER visit, and that led to an overnight stay in the hospital, and then to new medications and a scheduled follow-up with her doctor for later next week. This brought her family into it, and that in turn led to long conversations all the way around. When we got home, with her family in tow, I asked what she wanted to do since there was a house full of people, and she said she wanted to be here with her mum for a while. That was fine with me, as I had no desire to hang around all day with her dad or sister, so I said I was going to go finish up something at work, and would be home later. 2 hours after I get there, I get a text from her begging me to please come home, and that she really needs me to talk with her. So I finish up what I was doing and head home. I'm greeted on my own front porch by her dad, who asked if he could talk with me for a minute. My anger level was already somewhat high, but I was ready to go to war if she'd dumped a crack sack of lies on me with her dad. I mean, it's not like he and I are best friends and crap, but I've never had a bad moment with him, so I really wasn't going to be happy about being the idiot who broke his baby's heart. We sat on our deck chairs and he frickin' floored me with his opening salvo. I was expecting to hear anything but what he said. He said that she told them what had happened and that he wanted to apologise to me because he said that he felt like he did a really crappy job as a parent, and that this mindset that she had was really a creation of her mother's, and that while he loved both of them, he said they were wrong, and he'd told his wife years ago that telling the girls that whatever happens before marriage doesn't count was a horrible idea and value system to install on them. He then said that he wasn't there to stand up for what his daughter did, but he just wanted me to be aware that what she was saying and how she was acting was simply because she honestly believed that being married was an entirely different life, and that they, mum and dad, had romanticised marriage to the point that she wasn't really understanding real life. Basically, he was kind of throwing his wife under the bus, but again, this is not what I was expecting at all. We shook hands and he said that no matter what I decided, he still thought very highly of me, which honestly made me feel really good for that moment. I then went inside and my wife is curled up in a ball on her mum's lap, and you can tell she's been crying the entire time I've been gone. Mum gets up and comes and hugs me and tells me she is sorry and that she loves me and she is praying that we can work this out. My wife is laid out on the couch at this point. Her mum and dad leave and she sits there looking at me and crying. Okay, this is where I'm going to pee everyone off and just tell you that I couldn't take it. I went to her and we hugged for a long time, with her telling me over and over how sorry she was. Hey, I know it was the weak thing to do, but again, I have to say in my defense that just before this incident occurred, I loved her with all of my heart and would have done anything to not see her in pain. Whatever she had done, I still didn't want to see her like that. Look, it's very possible that she was putting on an Oscar-worthy acting job, but I honestly don't think so. She seemed really broken at that point in time. After a while, when she calmed down, I asked her what she wanted me to come home and talk about, and she said she wanted to get everything out in the open so I didn't feel like I was being lied to or manipulated. So she wanted me to ask her questions, and I wish I'd written down a list, but I came up with a few off the top of my head. She was brutally honest with me, and some of the questions I asked I probably shouldn't have, because now the mental image is stuck in there, but honestly it was there anyway, I just now have confirmation. First I asked for dates, or at the very least approximate dates. I didn't tell her about the engagement concern I had because I didn't want her to change stories, and she remembered exactly when they occurred. Fortunately, this happened a little earlier in our relationship than she told me initially, and so we were not engaged when this happened. I can't tell you what a relief that was, because I became physically ill when I thought about that when someone said it in my last post. Second, I asked how many times. She went overboard with this because instead of just telling me how many different dates, she decided to tell me how many times there was penetration. She wasn't doing it to be mean, she honestly thought that is what I wanted to know. This part of the conversation did not help me any at all, and in fact almost broke me down. In truth, it wasn't that often, and in fact there were really only 3 different days it happened on, but there were several times during those 3 days. Then came the hard part. Why did she do it? Okay, again, I'm not the most manly of men, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but I couldn't get this out without starting to cry. I asked why I wasn't good enough. Why him? Why did she just not leave me? It was her turn to hold me, because at this point everything came rushing at me. Her telling me having to watch them laugh with each other, her now telling me how many times they did it and where they did it. She talked during this, but to this moment I have no idea what she said. I was too upset, and honestly nothing she was going to say was going to make a bit of difference anyway. But after I composed myself, I simply told her that the betrayal was horrible, but honestly her response to me when I found out was just as bad, if not worse. She agreed with me and she apologized for calling me immature. She said that she honestly believed that it wouldn't matter to me now because we are married. When she said this, my blood started to boil again. I started to say something about it, but she jumped in and said that after talking with her parents, she now sees that this was very wrong of her and that cheating is cheating, but she still feels like that our happiness that we have shared since being married should count for something. I then replied that I kind of felt like the happiness was built on a lie. This led to another breakdown on her part and almost another ER visit, but between Ativan and having her breathe into a paper sack, we got her calmed down. I let her sleep the rest of the night, feeling like emotionally we were both tired, but come Sunday we were talking again. By this time I wasn't as sympathetic as I had been when we got home from the ER. I told her that I thought her introducing him to me was crappy, me having to watch her dance with him was extra crappy, and the fact that she only told me because she's going to get caught was an elite level of crappy. Which then I demanded to know, why did she think I would find out, and how many of the frickin' people at the wedding knew besides me? Well, obviously the guy knew, but then his best friend in the world also knew. Did I mention that fricker is now my brother-in-law? Which then led to her sister finding out, and she was afraid her sister was going to be the one to tell me. I asked how often she sees this guy, and she said that the wedding is the first time she's seen him in 3 years. Then I lost my crap, and asked her if she effed him during any of the lead up to the wedding. She got all pee about it, acting like she wouldn't F anyone because she was married, and I just lost my crap and had to leave for a while, because once again I felt like she was living on Married Planet, or some crap, and the world there is a different place than the rest of us. I finally got cooled off enough to come home and try and be civil about things. She finally asked me what she could do to help me get past all of this, which may not sound like much, but it was the first time she offered to help me really, so it was at least a nice gesture. I told her I wasn't sure what she could do or if there was anything either of us could do, and that I may never get over this. She said that she wanted to help because she didn't want to see me in pain, and that over the years, she hopes I'll be able to judge her based on who she is now. She would do anything I wanted to work this out. She also wanted to be sure that I knew that she has been 100% faithful since we've been married and would never cheat on her vows. I sarcastically thanked her, which I admit wasn't the most mature thing to do. I then asked for a moratorium for further talks till at least Wednesday. I have 2 projects I have to get done, and honestly I'm just exhausted and I have no freaking clue what to do. I shift between periods of red-hot anger where I just want to kick her out, and then periods of deep emotional turmoil where I just want to forget about this and move forward with her. Yes, I know this is not what anyone wanted to hear, and no, I'm not proud to type it, but it is what it is at the moment. Okay, now for another update. As you know, I asked to just drop it till last night so I could focus on job-related item I had to get done. She kept her word about it, but I could tell she was very emotional and honestly nervous. She's taking some strong benzodiazepines for her anxiety, but even as strong as it is, I can still see how anxious she's been. I wasn't intentionally trying to punish her, in fact quite the opposite. I really was trying to give her a break as much as me, but she told me last night that not holding her or showing any real affection towards her was almost torture to her. Well, last night finally arrived, and we had what my dad always called a come-to-Jesus meeting. I got home from work and I brought dinner so there would be no distractions of clean-up or anything. We started talking around 6, then finally ended around 2ish. In that time frame, we laid out a lot of issues that had been present, and what or if we were both willing to do to move forward. Long story short, starting today, I'm living with my brother for the next few, not sure. She's understandably upset by all of this, and I'm making an effort to communicate openly with her so she does not feel abandoned or neglected. If you're wondering how we got from talking to me living with my brother, here it is in a nutshell. I know this is not going to make several of you very happy, but here's where I'm going with this. I want to save my marriage, but I can't do it living what I feel was somewhat a lie. I know she never intended to lie once we were married, but when I sat down and thought about this one question, would I have stayed with her if I'd known at the time she did this? Each and every time I answered no. So to me, she took away my ability to choose whether or not I wanted to continue, and we built the next few years based on the foundation of something that wasn't quite true. However, the truth is, we still built something. Sometimes foundations can be repaired, and sometimes you have to tear them down to build new ones. This is what I'm hoping to do. I'm hoping to shake things up enough for both of us so that we can start over. Like I said in the very first post, our marriage until this point had been what I would consider to be perfect, or as perfect as any one thing can be. But there were some very troubling things that occurred due to this, and here's a brief synopsis of our talk. I laid out the fact that while I absolutely was upset about the cheating, and yes, I still consider it cheating, which she has now come to realise that this is the way it is and is going to be considered, I was equally upset by her lack of consideration for my feelings on this. I told her that I resented being told I was immature and a child, for something that objectively speaking, I had every right to be upset about. Her response was to apologise and tell me she was in the wrong, and that while she admits fault and sees what I'm saying, that at the time she had convinced herself that because we were married, that I was wrong to be upset about something that happened beforehand, but now she sees where this is wrong. I then told her that I felt very disrespected by her associating with this guy right in front of me, and that I felt humiliated having to shake his hand. Her response was to once again apologise, and she said that in her mind at the time, she felt like she was trying to show me that there was nothing there. She said she felt like if she avoided him or acted shady around him, that I would be more upset. I told her she was wrong. She said that out of all the things, this is the one that has hit her the most in the face, because even her sister has told her how poor this was for her to do to me, and she was deeply hurt by this because it had hurt me, which she never wanted to do. I then talked about her lack of remorse over being with someone else while we were together. Her only response was to say that she was very sorry, how that at the time she just used very poor judgment, and if she could go back and change the past, she would. Then came the talk that got the most discussion, how I felt like she really wasn't sorry for anything, but that she was just sorry that I didn't shrug my shoulders and say that everything was going to be okay, that there were going to be repercussions for what I considered to be an act of betrayal, and then an act of not caring about me. I'll give her full credit here. She was brutally honest about this, and at least she was, so we didn't have to spend hours trying to work our way around it. She admitted that when we got home after the event, she started to realise that I wasn't going to let this go, and then as time went on she knew that this was an issue. Her first instinct was to be mad at me for being mad at her, but then realised even from her own point of view how stupid that was. But again, she had it beat into her head that she was my wife and that I should really easily forgive and forget something that happened way before we were married. She also admitted that when it became real, she frankly outright panicked, thinking about losing her marriage. Nobody on either side of her family is divorced, so she could be the first, and she admitted to that being a big factor in her panic attack. But as the week has progressed and she's spoken more to her family, she is seeing that what she's put in her mind about marriage isn't the end-all be-all she thought it was. She also did really feel bad about bringing the guy around to me. However, you will notice, which I did too, that she never said she felt guilty about being with him. Now I want everyone to know this as well. What I have given you from above is a brief synopsis of events. She sounds like a robot in this version, and believe me, she was not. There were lots of tears, real honest tears. I've seen her "oh woe is me" tears before, so I know the difference. There were a few curse words, and there were even moments of pleading and begging. As I said, this went on for 8-ish hours, so by the time we were done, she was physically exhausted. I have set out the following steps if we are to reconcile, and it's totally up to her if she wants to stay together. She's very, very adamant about staying together, by the way. I don't care how illogical it seems, she is to never have contact with him again. This is an absolute for me, and a deal breaker, and I was absolutely clear on this. We have to have couples therapy. While I'm living with my brother, we are still legally married, and this is not an invitation or excuse for either of us to see anyone else. Again, deal breaker in a second. If either of us uses this as an excuse, believe me, I will not, and I don't believe she will either. We start over. To a point, I have to view her differently now, even if I didn't want to. I can't just forget that she chose to cheat. So that's where we are now. I know that is not what some of you wanted, but ultimately I have to go with what I believe will make me happiest in the long run. My head says be aware, and I'm going to guard my heart for a long time, but my heart is still in love with her. We are going out on a date Friday night, which she is really looking forward to. I have no idea how long I'll be with my brother. Heck, I may not make it past Friday, but if nothing else, I feel like I have some control here, which I felt prior to the talk I had almost none. In the end, I held her for a long time and we slept together. I do not want a broken woman. Right now, that's kind of what she is. I want her to be my partner for life, but I do want her to know that to be a partner, she has to equally care about my feelings as I do hers. P.S. I had to do some real hard thinking about my new brother-in-law. Again, I've only met him a few times and he seems like a nice enough guy, but at the end of it all, he certainly was aware of the issue. But just to keep peace in the family, I'm going to not make a stink about him because that will certainly make every holiday tough going forward. As long as he never mentions the incident or the guy ever again, to or around me, I can live with it. Okay, on to the final update. Thank you all who keep sending me messages of encouragement and wondering what has happened. For those of you who have asked me to give you an update, here is a brief one. I've been staying with my brother for a little over a month. I cannot say enough nice words about him. He has bent over backwards to help me, and I've come to appreciate him in a whole new way. Growing up we were close, but never really close, if you know what I mean. This has shown me that our bond is much stronger than I ever imagined. The big news is that I have delivered her with divorce papers. Now, before those of you who wanted me to dump her jump for joy, let me explain something. I went to a divorce lawyer and explained everything, including the fact that I did not want to go through with the divorce, but wanted everything in place just in case. He drew up a divorce decree and made 3 copies. One he kept on file, one for her, and one for me. I decided to take the paperwork to her myself because I knew she'd be upset and I wanted to explain to her what was happening. I gave her the paperwork in a manila envelope and explained what it was before she opened it. I also made very clear to her that I was not going to do anything with it unless we both failed to meet the conditions we both agreed upon. I explained that I was committed to us, but I really needed to see that we were headed in the right direction, and that this was only there as a standby in case she didn't think I was serious. Well, this did not go over well as I had hoped, and in retrospect this was a mistake on my part. She had been doing everything in her power prior to that to live up to my agreement. We had been out on several dates prior to this that were great for both of us. In other words, my timing sucked. My intention was good, but it did make it look like I was not acknowledging the steps she was taking to make this work. This led to another giant anxiety attack that we could not get under control with her meds, so off to the ER we went again. This time they gave her a shot and sent her home, and we both agreed that we'd keep her family out of it this time. I stayed with her for 2 days just to make sure she was okay. This of course came up in our counselling session, and well, let's just say that I came across looking like a manipulative jerk, which again in retrospect I was. I ended up taking my copy and her copy and tearing it up in front of her. She doesn't know there's a third copy, but I plan on having him discard that as well. So now I pretty much feel like a monster because the look on her face when she got the divorce papers was something I never want to see again. She was so happy to see me that day, and then I gave her that, and then instant combination of sadness and terror. Other than that bump in the road, things have actually been going quite well. Well enough, in fact, that I'm moving back home this weekend. My brother has been great, but I'm cramping his style no matter what he says. It's been fun playing Xbox every night though, I won't deny it. But mostly I'm going home because she's done everything I've asked of her, and I've put her through hell. I think she's paid a steep enough price, and I know she knows how serious this was. Also, in case I didn't mention this before, I do love her. She made a very stupid, selfish mistake, but it was years ago, and she has been almost the perfect wife up until that discovery. So I'm sorry to disappoint many of you, and I'm sure I will once again get many PMs telling me that I'm a cuckold and an embarrassment to all men, but I don't live your lives and you don't live mine. So this should be it. There hopefully will be nothing to update going forward. We are not cured or healed by any sense of the imagination, but we're on our way, and it's just going to take time, patience, and understanding. Wowee, folks. Alright, that's the end of that story. Let me know what you think in the comments. Pretty long and pretty full on, but seems pretty hopeful in the end as well.
I am at a loss as to what to do with my wife's request. My wife and I have been married since 2001 and together since 1999. She is the most intelligent, thoughtful, caring, loyal person I know, and I've always thought of myself as fortunate to have met and married her. She is, even today, aesthetically beautiful, and men have told her this throughout our marriage. She has always shot them down. Earlier this year, she was diagnosed with uterine cancer, stage 1, and had a full hysterectomy. I was never concerned about the cancer. It was diagnosed early, dealt with quickly, and she made a full recovery. I took time off work to look after her after the surgery, and all seemed well. There were some to-be-expected emotional instances on her part, and although I'm not an emotional person, we dealt with them together. After her recovery, she was insistent that we start living life to the fullest, and took a 10-day trip to Europe, followed by a trip to Belize. We also have a trip to the UK and Spain and Portugal later this year. I'm fine with these things, building memories and crossing bucket list adventures off her and our list. I also understand that these are a result of feeling fragile on her part. She also took up yoga, swimming, and healthy cooking classes. I was fully on board until last week. Last week she came home from work and told me she wanted a, quote, hall pass, a one-time opportunity for her to have sex with someone else besides me. She said that since her cancer diagnosis, her outlook on life has changed, and she doesn't want to be handcuffed from doing things she wants to do. She explained that there is this guy at her work that she has always had some attraction to. He is leaving the company and she will never see him again, so this is the perfect opportunity to sleep with someone else. She said that I could say no, of course, but that she would be mad and disappointed at me for an indeterminate amount of time, and that it would be confirmation of my male toxicity and insecurity. I don't consider myself to be toxic, and if not wanting your wife of 20 plus years to have sex with someone else is insecure, then I guess I am insecure. I told her that I appreciated her talking to me about this, but approval via coercion is not approval. I also said that I don't appreciate her language in describing my, as of yet, unknown reaction to this very large issue that could affect the rest of our marriage and life. I got up in the morning, and she basically said that she was sorry for putting such a large decision solely on my shoulders, and that to help, she was taking the decision away from me. She booked a hotel near where her co-workers are having a party and send-off for this guy, and she would spend the night there, with him, and hoped that I would be here when she got back. That she would answer any questions I have about the night after it happened, but not before. She will not tell me who he is or anything about him, because she knows me too well, and that I will dwell and obsess over him, and that would make it too real for me, which is pretty accurate. Her point of view is that the less I know the better, which contradicts the offer to tell me anything I want to know after it happened. I think she knows I won't want to know or ask anything, or she simply will not tell me. Part of me thinks at least she has been honest with me, and she has been through a lot since finding out she had cancer, so maybe I should just let it happen. I certainly have no concept of what she went through, so I cannot dismiss how this affected her mental state or outlook on life. part of me wants to put my foot down and say this is not going to happen and deal with those consequences when they happen. Her BFF called me callous for even suggesting that I wouldn't let it happen, because I have no idea what she went through. I find it hard to believe that she is okay with the possibility of throwing away 20 plus years of marriage over some guy that she has had no relationship with outside of work, and that I should just call her bluff. Maybe she thinks similarly that I won't throw away the marriage because of one encounter. I just don't know what to do. I empathize with her, and then an instant later, I am angry with her. Part of me wants to know who this guy is. What does he look like? What has he got that is so enthralling for her? Is he just a safe option? Is he married? Does his wife know? Would I be a callous a-hole for saying no? What can I do besides walking away? Wow, honestly, seems pretty selfish on her part. Let's look at the comments. This is sad. I tell her this. Let me be clear. You have taken away no decision from me that is mine to make. You are free to decide to abandon your vows on your own. Your willingness to preemptively insult any negative feelings I might have about this is a clear indication that you are out of all F's to give where I'm concerned. Let's just say that I hear you. My announcements of my own decisions will be forthcoming on my own timetable. Oh, and just so you cannot ever argue to the contrary, you most certainly do not have a hall pass from me. I will consider cheating to be cheating, and more so because this is willful and pre-planned. It's cheating in the first degree. While you may think you get moral credibility for honesty, that's not how it works. You don't credit for being honest. You just get dinged for being dishonest. You're not callous or insecure. Changes to the marriage requires 2 yeses, and if there's one no, either that item doesn't happen or you get divorced. Unfortunately, your wife has decided that she wants to be single and is doing this so you will leave, but she won't take the blame of being the one choosing to end the marriage because she gave you a heads up first. That's why her friends are on her side about it. My dad was diagnosed with cancer last year. Instead of wanting a hall pass from my mum, his wife of 30 years, he wanted to spend time with family more. Just because she got a diagnosis doesn't excuse this. If she is asking for a hall pass, I would expel her and move on from my life. She is gaslighting you by saying she is disappointed. If she is speaking this into fruition, she will do it. She gave you a heads up. I'm sorry. Kinda think this is the way your marriage will be from now on. With her epiphany, she wants to relive her life, and she's going to do it regardless of your feelings. I think she is being rather selfish, and probably only threatens this because she thinks you are beaten down, and will simply put up with it. Perhaps not the best time for trips and frills. She wants the single life. Let her see what that means. OP replies to some comments. She thinks because she'll never see this guy again, and that I've never met him, supposedly, that it won't really affect me or our marriage in the long term. I'm left with accepting it and never viewing her the same way again, or going through a divorce at 54. Not really great options on either front. I don't know where her head is, and the bout with cancer is affecting her in ways that I couldn't possibly imagine. I don't think she believes I will leave. Now for the first update. I received a ton of advice that I couldn't possibly respond to. I do appreciate the people who took time to offer advice in the comments or via PM. It has been an exhausting couple of days. I was hoping that my opposition to her plans would give her pause, but unfortunately that did not happen. I said I am a hard no, and I'm not sure how I'll feel about you if you go ahead with it. I was met once again with, "This is for me. It will be one time. What can I say to help you deal with it? You'll get over it. We were meant to be regardless of the situation." Remarks leading up to Saturday. She left Saturday, ostensibly to meet her co-workers, but in reality, to F the guy. I asked her to text me when she was leaving for the bar, and when she did, I asked her if she was really going to go through with this. After her response, "I'm not answering any more questions tonight. I will see you tomorrow." I blocked my wife. Then I did something either stupid or brilliant. I went to the bar where the get-together was happening. Well, not the bar, but a transit bench across the street. I waited for a long time. It was running through my mind, the leading up to this event, that I need to know who this guy was, maybe to compare myself against him, to see what he had that I had not. It was driving me crazy not knowing who he was and what was so special about him that she would ruin a marriage for. After what seemed like eternity, a woman that I recognized from my wife's office left the bar and got in a cab. Soon other people started filing out, and a whole group came out and people were hugging a man and shaking his hand. I assumed that I had my guy. I didn't see my wife and had a brief thought that maybe she called it all off. I unblocked her and there were no messages. Everyone said their goodbyes and left. Dude was standing outside for a few minutes and then my wife came out. She looked around, took his hand and started walking away together. Of all the emotions I went through, trepidation, sadness, anger, it was disgust that really encapsulated the event for me. This guy was short, fat and bald, all the things I cannot compete with. Ultimately, I felt like a pervert for watching them from a distance. I followed until they got to the hotel, and then turned around and went home. I woke up Sunday morning and put a lock on the master bedroom door. I moved her things to the spare room and left a note asking her to find other accommodations as quickly as possible. I visited another friend who is a lawyer, and he gave me some sage advice and a couple of recommendations for divorce attorneys and made the introductions. My wife had been calling me numerous times since around 11 or so. Once blocked, the calls go to voicemail. I listened to the first couple but felt nothing but some satisfaction when she couldn't get through to me, and she was obviously becoming concerned. I didn't want to go home, but I left in such a hurry that I didn't plan an overnight properly. I got home around 9, and as per my buddy's advice, I recorded the interaction. I was halfway up the stairs when she came up from the family room, asking what was going on. Could we talk? I thought we talked about this. I just answered with I'm not interested in discussing this tonight, and went to bed. After not getting a response from me through the door, she left me alone. I feel like kind of a child for not talking with her and shutting the door on her, but I just couldn't look at her. Monday I got up and ready for work. She was waiting for me and asked if we could discuss getting back to normal. I said, "You've been doing all the talking for both of us for the last week. Why don't you continue?" and left for work. I have an appointment with the attorneys my friend recommended for this week. Now for a couple more comments. I can only hope that you've decided to do what's best for you. At the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with your decisions. From your previous post, it's obvious that your wife, and I use that term merely as a placeholder, has made her decision. I know that having something that has been such a huge part of your life end can be daunting, but sometimes it's for the best. The BFF does not have your best interests in mind. The BFF wants to validate their bad choices by encouraging you to make the same ones. The BFF lives for the drama they help create. The BFF is titillated by the details. The BFF cultivates misery. The BFF is a narcissist who can't help themselves. So if the statement, "Just go for it, you deserve it," he doesn't appreciate you, he doesn't respect you, and in my case, you faced your own mortality and you shouldn't let anyone hold you back from doing the things that make you happy, maybe realize that you should talk with your significant other and explain what you are feeling. You owe it to them to discuss the way you're feeling about yourself, your partner, and your marriage. Some comments from OP. Yeah, once the dust settled, I realized that I was desperate to hold on to something that no longer existed. I have initiated divorce proceedings. She has regret, not remorse. Of course, those are different things with different meanings. She regrets what has happened because her life is upside down now. Someone in a private message asked if her cancer could be back and spread to her brain, which I don't know if it's actually happened or not, but I doubt it would make any difference to me at this point. I just don't see her the same way anymore. I told all her friends' husbands about how they enabled this behavior, and the fallout is interesting. I said that maybe they're covering for one another, that maybe my wife was just the next link in the chain. This got them going through their wives' phones. A couple found inappropriate sexting. All husbands have made their wives cut off my wife and each other. Another commenter asks, was the BFF one of those sexting? Opie says, of course. The BFF's husband says that she was definitely into an EA and probably a PA as well. He's still digging. Okay, let's go to the next update. My lawyer wasn't available for a few days, so I was faced with the reality of having to live with my wife in the interim. I really didn't want to go home and have any discussion, let alone a discussion about our relationship. When I did get home, I was basically ambushed by her friends and my mother-in-law. Instead of taking the remorseful approach, they decided that a full court press was what the situation warranted, and I was basically berated by them. The BFF was definitely the ringleader, but all of them decided to say such things as, "She's been through a lot. You don't know what she's been through. You have no idea what it's like to face something like this. This was a one-time thing. At least she told you she could have hidden it from you. She will never see the guy again. And my favourite, you are an a-hole for what you've been putting her through these last couple days." I listened with a, quote, dumbass smirk on my face, and when there was a lull in their fury, I asked if they were all done now. Then I asked my wife if there was anyone in her circle of friends or anyone else that she forgot to tell about this. I quietly informed all of them that I was going to sit down with their husbands and tell them about how they verbally abused me, shaming me, and trying to coerce me into staying with a cheater. After I told them to leave, I said that I had no say in the entire event, and so they have no say in whether I stay or not. My soon-to-be ex-wife sort of apologized. She said that she regretted the entire thing. I said there is a difference between regret and remorse. You regret what happened because of the cause and effect. You have regret because your life will never be the same. Our relationship will never be the same because you were wholly and willfully unconcerned about me and what I wanted. She asked if I had any questions that she would answer them now, no matter how disturbing. I said that the one question I do have is why. Not necessarily why this guy, why this low-end, unattractive, unfit guy, but why someone else in the first place. She said that the cancer scared her to the core. She felt like she was rushing towards mortality, and stepping out of that tunnel was appealing. She said that after all this time of being a wife and mother and worrying about family, this was something just for her, an escape. The guy was just someone who was interested in her for a long time. She knew wouldn't say no and was completely opposite to me. I said if I was going to risk my marriage, the woman would have to be a serious upgrade from you. I told her that I saw you and him coming out of the bar that night. I watched you walk away from the bar hand in hand towards the hotel. I said that you looked too familiar with each other and asked if there was something going on before all of this. She says no, but who knows if that's the truth or not. I said that after all our years together, your lack of respect for me was astonishing. I finished by saying that I would never be able to look at myself in the mirror again if I condoned that level of disrespect and stayed with you. I said I hope we can go our separate ways amicably and that I have an appointment with a lawyer later in the week. I again asked her to find some other accommodations, and she simply said, "I'm not going anywhere. We are not getting a divorce. I will give you all the time you need and do whatever you need to recover from this. We will get past this." She has asked me to go to marriage counselling, which I refused. Why would I go to counselling? I did nothing to warrant needing a therapist's advice. I had her served and gave her a notice to vacate. The house is my premarital asset. She has moved in with her mum, but I find her constantly coming by to see if I need anything, or making suggestions like, "What if we had an open relationship only on your side, or threesomes?" Which kind of seems desperate and pathetic. I'm rebuffing her constantly and telling her she has to call to ask permission before coming by, and finally seems to be getting through to her that there will be no us going forward. She has said that she'll drag the divorce out for as long as possible, but so far has been compliant. The worst part of all of this is telling my daughter that we're getting a divorce and why, followed closely by her begging me to give her mum another chance. I'm not sure I would have been afforded the same consideration if I was the one who was cheating. Now for some more comments from OP. On his daughter. I think it was just a gut reaction. In the weeks that have passed and the more she understands what has happened, the more irritated she is becoming with her mum. On his wife. I loved my wife. I and others found her to be stunning. She looks like Linda Carter. Now knowing that she had fared down so low makes her a non-entity that I could never look at the same way again. No amount of counselling is going to change the way I see her. Now for some Q&A. One commenter says, Something had to transpire prior to her hotel excursion. There's no way she decided in a matter of a few days to pick and cheat with the affair partner. Opie replies, "Getting sex is easier for women. Maybe they were involved in an emotional affair before and this was a culmination. I don't really know, nor do I care, unless it benefits me during the divorce. From what I know, all of her friends have cut her off. They are trying like hell to save their own marriages that they're all turning on each other." One commenter asks, "After vacating your house, is she feeling any remorse, or is she still thinking you need to get over it as of today? Going no contact with her should be easy since the daughter is an adult. What desperate measures has she taken that you haven't mentioned in your posts and comments?" Opie replies, "She was stoic and held her position right up until she was served. Then she became visibly upset and resorted to begging, pleading, and bargaining." Really? No tears? No emotional meltdown? I'm sorry that happened to you. How can she not see what she has done to you? The whole way this went is so surreal, from start to finish. It is like she has a maniac or hypomanic episode. You were doing the right thing by divorcing her. Sorry, but there is no love in her anymore. You, sir, have not lost your self-respect and have made the right choice. Take care of yourself." Opie replies, "Plenty of tears, begging and bargaining after the fact, but that may be just optics. Maybe she fell out of love and is now regretting her new station in life. She's an attractive woman. She will have plenty of men willing to date her, but I won't be one of them." Now on to the final update. There is not much to report. We are in the process of getting a divorce. However, where we live, we must be legally separated for 1 year. My soon-to-be ex-wife has said that she will give me whatever I want in the divorce if I agree to attend marriage counselling, but I'm not interested. There was a bit of back and forth while we worked out what separation looks like in everyday life from this point forward. As a result, we have only just agreed to the confines of the legal separation, so as we move forward defining the divorce language, maybe my stance may change. The house was a premarital asset, so she has no claim to it. The only things she could go after are my pension, vehicles, and vacation property, but I would counter that she has lived rent-free for 20 plus years and has her own money, plus inheritance from her father. I may have to offer a top-up in retirement as she was a stay-at-home mum while our daughter was young, but that would be the most at this point. I received a lot of messages about her friend group and my daughter, so I'll clear that up and any misconceptions now. My daughter isn't taking her mother's side. She's always been a mama's girl, but she's very unhappy with her mum right now. Her initial reaction was just shock and held out hope that we would work through any issues and stay together. Now she accepts that is not going to happen. She's been limiting her interactions with her, but at the end of the day, she is still her mum. The friend group husbands were upset at the level of complicity of their wives in aiding and abetting the contact and cheating, and made them cut off my wife, but that seems to have been forgotten at this point. The BFF was the ringleader and seems to have taken perverse pleasure in actively creating scenarios where they would be in contact, at the very least encouraging to the point of causing her husband to question her motives. It turns out she didn't like me at all, and this was her way of sticking it to me. I guess she wins. The BFF's husband said there were some sexting in his wife's messages, but said he is dealing with it. We did meet up, with him being apologetic for his wife's complicity, but it's not his fault and just want to move on. I have decided to not date anyone for a while. I'll not be getting married ever again. So that is it. I doubt I will post again, unless she wins the lottery and I find it in my heart to forgive her. Yeah, I'm sure winning the lottery will make all your enemies forget their bad feelings about you pretty quickly. But yeah, anyway, that's the end of that story. Give me your thoughts down below. It's just a shame that she beat cancer and went through all that hardship just to ruin her life after the fact. Like that wife was just so arrogant, and then she was in denial about the whole thing after it. It's one of those stories that just gets you riled up when you read it.
Am I the a-hole for cancelling my brother's wedding? To make a novel short, my brother met his future wife, Ella, at a party 3 years ago. Honestly, we never got along, but I always tried to put up a peaceful front because my brother seemed blissfully happy with her. Ella was mean to me a lot. Like, a lot. She would make comments about my weight, my makeup, and especially my dog. She hated animals and hated that I would bring my lab, Toast, to my parents' or my brother's house. It always felt like something aimed to hurt me. When the two got engaged, she asked me to be her maid of honor since she has no sisters or many girlfriends, and since my brother seemed thrilled, I obliged. What I failed to realize when I accepted the role was that her maid of honor meant planning the entire wedding. Like I was booking venues, florists, jazz band, everything. Even worse, she expected me to put my credit card down for all of it. My brother and her are not exactly well off, and since I have a well-paying job, I didn't mind holding the deposits, but it was starting to add up to a lot. Every time I asked Ella about it, she would say that it would all be paid back by her parents before the wedding. Well, flash forward to last week, about 3 weeks before the wedding, and she's unbearable to be around. She can't last more than a few sentences before snapping at anyone. So when I of course brought up the money, crap hit the fan. I asked if she had received the updated receipt of everything owed when she exploded. She called me a whole line of terrible names, but the one that stuck out was her saying, "What do you need the money for anyway? Your sick dog is dead now." My beautiful Toasty died about a month before this, after he fought the bravest battle with cancer. He was my soul dog, and I was devastated. I blinked at her and simply left the room, having no energy to even respond to something so cruel. I went back to my car, and after the 20-minute silent drive home, I parked the car and immediately called the vendors and cancelled any deposit under my card. Every single one. After almost 20 calls, all that was left of her wedding was the dress and the flower arch. I texted my brother a short explanation. I told him that every vendor would be contacting him if they wished to keep their services, and they were now responsible for covering everything, and that I would no longer be attending. It was a matter of minutes before my phone started to explode, and I just turned it off. It's been a few days, and I haven't talked to anyone but my mum, who thankfully understands where I was coming from. My brother has tried to call, but I just feel terrible, both about what I did and about what she said. I know what I did was extreme, but I also couldn't sit by and practically enable her cruelty anymore. I still can't help but feel bad for ruining my brother's big day. So I don't know, am I the jerk for this? Geez, honestly, I probably would have done the same. Like, fair enough. That's such a terrible thing to say to someone. What would you guys do? Let me know down below. Alright, let's check out some comments. Not the a-hole. They were never going to pay you back. It's a good thing she showed how wicked she was before you stuck with the bill. I'm sorry about your loss. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about what you did. They shouldn't be getting married if they don't have the money. If her parents were going to pay, they can put down their card for deposits. When you give family money, don't ever expect to get it back. Now, OP, since you probably aren't going to the wedding, that block of time is still freed up. Why don't you take a day or two and go someplace special? Someplace nice, just for you. You deserve it. Not just to make up for the way the bride treated you, but because of the loss of your dog. Not the a-hole. She was going to take you for all that money, and was just using you. Your brother was allowing it. The comment about your dog was incredibly crappy. I'm sorry about your loss. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Not even a little. First, a maid of honor duties do not include planning the whole wedding, and they certainly do not put down all the deposits and pay for the wedding. If you ask me, it sounds 100% like they were going to stiff you for the wedding. I don't believe for a minute her parents were paying for it. She was using us, and I can't believe your brother can't see the kind of person she is. And I'll tell you what, frickin' with the memory of my dog, well, those are fighting words. I guess she effed around and found out. Okay, on to the update. First thing asked, me paying. Ella was promised a hefty wedding budget when she was younger. Between those years and the pandemic, they had to dip into that wedding fund. In the end, Ella only got a third of what she was promised. She insisted that most of what she had to go to the dress, but she would drone on about how there were so many things the wedding wouldn't have, and how it wouldn't be the wedding of their dreams. It was only like a week after that, my brother came up and asked if I could cover a few costs of the wedding, while Ella's parents made up the rest to pay it back. I do make a considerable amount more, and since this would be my brother's wedding too, I agreed. Stupid, I know. Second most discussed, Ella's treatment of me. Truthfully, she played the nice and loving girlfriend well to most, especially my brother. Even I thought she turned a new leaf a few times, but it would never last. Some of the comments she made wouldn't be always outwardly mean enough for a passerby to pick up, aka my brother, along the lines of, "Oh, are you sure you want to go out in that? Something looser might be a bit more comfortable." Or, "I would loan you a shirt, but I don't want it to stretch out." Mean girl comments, simply put. She lost many friends over her crazy notion of them being jealous of her, even accusing them of being in love with my brother. She had 2 other bridesmaids in the wedding, but they were barely close as well. Someone said it in the comments, being stuck between seeing Snow White and not being able to see the evil queen within. That's the best way to describe her. She's beautiful, but something is rotting inside. And maybe the most asked, did they stay together? I caved and finally answered my brother last night. From what he said, they are on a break. My brother had picked up on a few instances of her acting questionably, but hoped it was wedding stress. He was fuming when he found out what she said. I do know she no longer has the ring. My brother and I's relationship is definitely going to need some repair, but I think after a long communication break and setting up better boundaries for partners and respect to siblings in the future, we should be okay. Also, yes, I did lose some money, just as predicted. She hoped I would end up gifting the payments away. Ella has told my brother that she was waiting for a surprise check from her grandparents to completely pay it off. Check didn't exist. Thankfully, the no longer to be in-laws have agreed to sell the dress to pay me back for what I did lose, instead of legal action. Lastly, to my boy Toast. All of your sweet comments made me cry for an embarrassing amount of time, lol. I hope I made him proud. There will never be a day I don't defend that dog with everything I have. He is being lovingly remembered by his family and his little brother, Crumb. Toast and Crumb, such good names for dogs. Alright, we're going to go to one more comment. This is a response from OP to a comment saying that this was fake. There is nothing convenient about what happened. Did I put up with hurtful comments now and again because I wanted my brother to be happy? Yes. I wasn't going to make a scene because she told me my foundation looked cakey. I wasn't going to meet pettiness with pettiness. People just want to see the best in each other, and unfortunately, we learn why we shouldn't do so the hard way. Not everything is resolved. The situation is still happening. But yes, after finally speaking to my brother after a week, I got new information. Kinda how resolving a situation goes. There are still issues unresolved. This post doesn't signify everything going back to right. The most sick part of this comment is thinking I'd lie about my dog. There are a lot of crappy things in this world, but making up the death of a dog? Life exists more than making up stories for the internet. Hope you have a better day. Someone asks, did Ella reach out to you? Yes, but we haven't spoken. She followed me out to my car that day when she realised I wasn't turning around. I just ignored her and drove away. She started to progressively get more mad. She blew up my phone and was the main reason I had to turn it off. She continuously said I was being selfish for making this time about me, even tried to convince my brother this sick and twisted version, where I was the one who went off. From what I know, no one from my family has spoken to her, including my brother, the last 2 days. Crumb and I are going to head to Toast's favourite lake, I think. We never got to properly mourn him during the midst of the planning, so hoping to dedicate a weekend for him. Okay folks, so that's the end of that story. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, let me know what you would do in OP's situation here. Like I said, I'd probably do the same. That woman was way out of line. Alright, let's go to our next one. Okay, this one was posted on the same subreddit. It was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, Am I the a-hole for buying a $50,000 guitar for $4,000 and refusing to sell it back when the buyer found out the real value? This happened a while back. My wife and I still talk about it every once in a while. She's on my side and most of our friends and family are. However, when it happened, it was like World War III between us and her co-workers and others. Here we go. I've been playing the guitar for 22 years. I know guitar values and whatnot very well. I'm very into the guitar market. At my wife's old company, she was hanging out with co-workers one day after work, and she mentioned that I play guitar. A co-worker who I guess is very popular at work said that his dad passed away and he was selling his dad's things. His dad had a guitar and asked my wife if I'd be interested in it. My wife texted me, and I said to have him send me the info on the guitar and the price. The next day, he texted me the pics and price. It was a 1952 Telecaster in mint condition. He had the original receipts, which is crazy. That's how I knew the date. I asked what he wanted for it, and he said he looked up Telecasters online, and he thinks $4,000 is fair. I texted back, I'll take it for $4,000, and went to pick it up. The guitar had no sentimental value to him at all. Here's the issue at hand. The guitar was and is worth approximately $50,000 depending on the buyer, and I knew it. When I got the guitar, I told my wife the price and what it was worth. She was floored. Fast forward 2 weeks, her co-worker tells my wife he just found out what the guitar was actually worth from a family friend and wanted it back. She said, well, he really likes the guitar and he knew it was worth $50,000, which is why he was floored you offered it to him for $4,000. He really likes it, and I doubt he'll sell it back, but you can ask. Probably not the smartest thing for her to say, but she was caught off guard, and it's not her fault or problem. He contacted me and asked to buy it back. I said that it's not for sale. He then said I scammed him, and he was going to sue me and take my wife to HR for being a part of the scam. Which was nuts, but he actually did go contact HR. They were cool about it and said it's not their problem. It's between him and me. Over the next few months, he made things very uncomfortable for my wife at work. He would bug her constantly about it. She eventually had to go to HR for harassment, and they actually let him go. She complained twice and he was warned, and didn't stop. He's contacted me several times about it, so I got a restraining order for harassment too. I blocked him too. I haven't heard from him in about a year. Am I the a-hole? That's a tricky one actually. I can't help but feel like OP kind of lied by omission and in turn took advantage of a guy who was grieving his dead father. But also the guy selling the guitar probably should have done a little bit more research before, selling it off. What do you guys think? Let's go to the comments. Not the a-hole. When you sell something, it is your responsibility to know or determine what it's worth, not the person you are selling to. Someone replies, that's not necessarily true. In some countries, what OP did might even be illegal. In Germany, for example, as far as I know, a contract can be considered disputable or even void when the bought object had properties either one of the parties didn't know about that would have influenced their decision to be part of said contract. That's partly to make sure that people aren't conned by other people who have had way more expertise in something. I'm not sure whether that holds for private contracts too though, but still, the seller obviously didn't know the real value of the guitar, and if he had known, he wouldn't have given it to the OP for $4,000, which OP knew, hence him not asking, are you sure about the price? Plus, to be honest, OP is pretty freaking stupid for doing that to someone their wife worked with. They basically scammed someone, felt really freaking good getting such a deal from someone who didn't know the real worth of something they just inherited because of knowledge OP has because of a particular interest of theirs, and now they get all Pikachu-faced that the other person is angry and made things crap for OP's wife at work. Harassment still isn't okay in any shape, way or form, so before that I would have said you're the a-hole, but with the harassment, everyone sucks here. Another comment adds, I absolutely disagree. When you have an item you want to sell, it is on you and you alone to know the value of it, not the a-hole. There are no take-backs in the real world, except Germany apparently. Everyone sucks here. You blatantly took advantage of him and his ignorance. He sucks because he didn't research it enough and then harassed you and your wife to the point it got him fired. Just a whole messy situation. I don't think you should sell it back to him. You paid a price he gave you. Bad on him. You just seriously took advantage of him. Bad on you. Everyone sucks here. Harassing you and your wife is not okay whatsoever, regardless of circumstance. But let's be real. You did prey on his ignorance and took advantage of it, which makes you suck too. Harsh lesson for the guy. Double whammy and losing something of value, and going crazy and being fired in the process. He's an idiot because he should have just done his research. You, on the other hand, will justify in your head why you think you're in the right and won't lose any sleep over it. But consider this. Insider trading is wrong because of information asymmetry, i.e. someone profits because of others' ignorance. The balance of knowledge of information is not the same. Similarly, there was major information asymmetry between you and this guy. You knew way more about the value of the guitar because it's one of your passions. You profited from this asymmetry. Granted, not illegal, as insider trading is, but if it were me, I would feel really guilty about taking this kind of advantage over someone. This is $46,000 we're talking about. Edit. Not going to respond to everyone saying this isn't exactly like insider trading. I don't think I said that. I was simply drawing on the concept of information asymmetry to illustrate why I believed what OP did was wrong. Everyone jumping on me that this isn't exactly insider trading is stating the obvious. This is one that could fuel an ethics class discussion. What you did was opportunistic. For some, opportunism has no inherent value, good or bad, so for those, you simply engaged in a sale paying the sticker price. End of story. Others believe that opportunism is a trait to be valued. For those, you did nothing to mislead, and therefore taking advantage of an opportunity to advance your own objectives is a marker of a successful individual. For these people, each person is responsible first to himself, so you had the obligation to get yourself a good deal, and the seller had the obligation to get himself a good deal. The results here being that you succeeded and he failed. These same people would side with the seller if he had asked you for $50,000 for the guitar and you happily paid that, and later learned that it was only worth $4,000. Given that circumstances were the same and he didn't lie, just that you failed to research. And then there are others that believe that opportunism is a negative trait that requires preying on others. For those, the overall impact to society that concealing information in order to profit, a lie of omission, creates is largely negative. These people would feel you had a larger ethical duty to the truth and that you took advantage of someone else for personal gain. These would be people who tend to support Kant's idea of a moral imperative. His idea, oversimplified version, states, "Does my action respect the goals of human beings, rather than merely using them for my own purposes? If the answer is no, then we must not perform the action." I can see both sides, and would have a hard time as a juror having to choose. Those making the argument that the seller did not do diligence are hard to ignore. There was a great deal of his own negligence that led to his predicament, but ultimately we aren't here to judge him, we're here to judge you, because you asked for it. In the end, I'm with Kant, and you're the a-hole, and I wonder if maybe you aren't also a bit of a Kantian. After all, it's still niggling at your conscience years later. Yeah, some great comments there from both sides of the argument. I love that. Let's go to the update. Well, this post blew up way beyond what I was expecting. It looks like I was voted not the a-hole. There's over 5,000 comments. I couldn't read them all, but I did read a lot. Just to clear up some things, I left some things out because I didn't want it to influence opinions, and really wanted it to be about me buying a guitar at significantly lower market value versus the people in the story. I did include the fact that the guy was harassing my wife at work, not to make the guy sound bad, but because I thought it was relevant to the story. Here's some more specific details I chose not to include. The guy and his dad were not close at all, so those people saying he was grieving and I took advantage of him, that is 100% not the case. When I went to get the guitar, he was telling me he hadn't talked to his dad in 6 years, and was actually annoyed he had to deal with a funeral. The dad bought the guitar new and never played it. Luckily, it was stored in a closet and not in a basement or attic. There's no issue with the wood or electronics. It plays like a dream and I couldn't be happier. I'm not selling the guitar to the son or anyone. It will be with me for a long time. I'm in my 30s, so maybe in another 30 years it will find a new home. I would have maybe considered giving the guy more money or giving him one of my guitars to sell on his own, but I decided not to do that after he left a terrible voicemail on my phone the day he found out the real value. He demanded it back like he was entitled to an object he sold fair and square. He called me a POS, called my wife a POS, and said he would do bad things if I didn't sell him the guitar back. And to those people who say they would have told the guy the real value, that's a load of horse crap. If you went to a garage sale or estate sale and saw an item worth $5,000 priced at $50, there's not a snowball's chance in hell you would walk up to the homeowner and tell them they mispriced it. You'd buy the item and then tell all your friends and family what a great score you got. Don't even kid yourself like you wouldn't do that. I don't feel bad about buying an awesome guitar at a steal of a price. I was curious what others would think, and it looks like I'm not the jerk, so thank you, Reddit. I can play the guitar with zero guilt now. Not like I felt guilty before, but now my feelings are justified. Okay folks, that's all she wrote for that one. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think Opie makes a pretty good analogy there in the end and justifies his decision. But yeah, that argument whether or not opportunism is, a positive or negative trait is still kind of relevant here. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to see a discussion on this one.
How do I, 27 female, tell a one-night stand that I have his kid? Okay, to keep it simple, my son's baby daddy was a one-night stand. He was a trucker who got snowed in. We met at a bar and hooked up. Didn't exchange contact info. I was just bored, lonely, and temporarily insane from the pandemic and was being risky and stupid as crap and didn't bother with protection. Love my kid though, no regrets there. Glad I didn't get an STD. When I realised I was pregnant, I thought long and hard about it and decided to keep him. Thanks Catholic guilt. It's not strong enough to stop me from having sex, but strong enough to stop me from getting an abortion, lol. Just kidding, I love my kiddo and kept him because I wanted him. I make a decent living. Child support would help, but we can get by without it. I didn't expect to ever see the baby daddy again, and I was okay with that. Kiddo has my last name. I don't know his. I was fine with being a single mum and dealing with everything myself. To be honest, some of my friends have crap baby daddies, and they and their kids are better off without them. I feel like Kiddo and I are better off on our own than trying to add something to the mix anyway. At least that's what I told myself. But my friend who works at the gas station just happened to see him. She knows his name and race, saw his name on his ID. She's nosy and she made sure to confirm it was the same guy and ask if he remembered me. Asked for his number on my behalf and passed it on to me. I'm sure he is flattered thinking some random hookup talked up his skills to her friends to the extent that they remembered his name. Anyway, thanks to her nosiness, I can't claim innocence anymore and I'm forced to make a decision. So, first of all, do I say anything? I know it's technically supposed to be the right thing to do, but to be honest, I've heard so many baby daddy horror stories. It's to the point that if I'd gotten pregnant from a hookup with a guy I would reasonably expect to see again, but not know well enough to trust, I might actually abort because I wouldn't want my kid to go through what some kids have gone through. If I say something, this guy can sue for custody or guardianship. I can't bear the thought of letting my baby go to some stranger and not being around. Hell, he can't even talk and couldn't tell me if something happened. Not that I think anything would or that the trucker will want custody in the first place, but who even knows these days? On the other hand, how can I deprive my kiddo of a father? It would be one thing if, once he was older, I could honestly say I didn't know where his father was, but I can't possibly lie to him about that, and I can't imagine telling him I could have found his father, but I was too scared. So I'm leaning towards telling him, but how do I even do that? Can I just text him the news and get it over with? Should I try and see if he can meet up next time he passes by and tell him face to face? Is there any kind of legal crap I should be aware of with this kind of thing? Yeah, in case you couldn't tell, I went from giving no Fs during the pandemic to giving too many Fs about everything as a mum, and no matter what plan I make, I just keep thinking of the ways that things might backfire and somehow hurt my kiddo. I know I'm way overthinking probably, but please, I just need someone to tell me what to do. Let's go to the comments. You know what this mum would do? I would go to a family attorney and ask them if there are any compelling reasons to keep your son's dad in the dark. I can think of a few. One is that you know zip about this guy except what he looks like naked, and that he's a trucker. That's it. You have no clue if you want to invite him into your circle. But yeah, I'd talk to an attorney before I risk exposure. He's a stranger. If it were me, I would not invite an opportunity to have someone I don't know at all take my baby half the time, because he's technically the father who had no choice in the decision to have the baby. Just my personal opinion. Background check sounds like a good idea. See if first of all he's a decent enough person to so much as consider it. If he does end up being a great person, then your kid gets an awesome dad. If not, you're opening up the both of you to a potential threat to your comfort, and you might get stuck with him. Ultimately, it's your choice. He doesn't know about the kid. Not finding out won't kill him or hurt him. You have no obligation to tell him, in my opinion. He's the sperm donor. That's all, for now. You can choose if he gets to be more than that. I'd also agree with an attorney. See if letting him know could open you up to anything. Example, him getting partial custody and crap, firstly, and if there are any preventative measures. Basically, see if you have all your bases covered. Personally, I have no idea what I would do if I was in your situation. At the very least, after you've covered your bases, it can't hurt to meet up and get to know him a bit more. Yeah, some solid advice there, I think. Let's go to the update. This was my first post and it didn't get a lot of comments, but I wanted to let you guys know how it turned out. I forgot my password for my first throwaway, so I had to make a new one, but it's still me. So a while back, I posted here asking for advice about how to tell my baby daddy I have his kid. After figuring out how to run a background check and seeing no criminal history, I thought I would try to meet him, do a vibe check, see if he seems cool. Hook up with him again if I need to in order to get to know him, lol. Anyways, turns out I didn't need to go that far. The guy texted me that he was stopping by in town. We met up for breakfast. I was like, cool, promising. Breakfast usually doesn't lead to a hookup, so he actually wants to get to know me, which makes it much easier for me to get to know him. We made some typical casual date small talk. Then he asks, do I have kids? I tell him 1. He asks, how old? I say 1. He's like, is he 1 in 1 month? He figured it out on his own. When my friend who never met him recognized him by his name and insisted he get in contact with me, apparently he was like, it's either a baby or a very serious STD. So I just came clean and told him everything. I haven't introduced him to Kiddo yet, but I showed him a picture. He agrees that Kiddo is the cutest kiddo ever and looks like him. We're getting a paternity test. He's definitely the dad because he's the only Asian guy I've been with, and the kid is definitely part Asian. But I don't blame him for checking since I know some women will lie about things like that. He doesn't seem like he doesn't believe me, he just wants to make sure, which is fair. Dad said if the kid is his, he's fine with paying child support and just having supervised visitation until I trust him more. He lives in his truck apparently, so no judge would give him any custody until that changed. So that's how it is. I didn't really get the choice to decide on my own terms whether to introduce them or not, but so far, it all seems to be working out. Someone in the comments asks, what's your end goal here? Opie replies, not sure I have one really, just taking things as they come. I didn't expect him to figure it out on his own, and it kinda ruined whatever plans I have. It would be nice for Kiddo to know his dad, assuming his dad is a decent person. I have no reason to think he's not, I'm just cautious. And some child support money wouldn't hurt. I support him on my own with some help from friends for childcare, but I could buy some nicer treats for the kid and start a decent savings account for him with child support. Okay, and that's pretty much the end of that story, although Opie gives another comment in a separate thread that provides a little bit more context. A lot of people are really struggling to understand why I was so worried about my baby daddy. I'll use whatever words I want to use, y'all can deal, and whatever risk he might pose to my son, and why I'd trust a guy enough to have sex with him, but then not want him around my kid. I imagine a lot of you aren't parents, but let me try to explain. My son is 1 year old. He is totally helpless. He is totally dependent on me. I care about him way more than I ever cared about myself. I used to ride a motorcycle. Do I anymore? No, I sold it because I don't want to leave him without a mum. I used to hook up with strangers. Do I anymore? No, taking risks is a completely different ball game when I have someone else to worry about besides myself. And also, I have no time for that, lol. Every single decision I make now is filtered through the lens of, how could this affect Kiddo? Now, when I first realised I was pregnant, I never thought that I would see his father again. Everything I did was under the assumption I'd be doing it alone, which I knew would make things harder on me in many ways, but on the other hand, it meant I would never have to see my baby cry because Daddy broke a promise again. It was what it was, pros and cons. I knew I'd have to explain to my son someday that I didn't know how to find his father. I was prepared for that. What I wasn't prepared for was ever having to make the decision of introducing my son to his father or not. That is a whole different ballgame. It was like the rug was pulled out from under me. I couldn't say, oh, it is what it is, pros and cons anymore. I'd have to make a decision, and my son would have to live with whatever decision I made. This wasn't something I took lightly. Of course I would rather that my son have a good father than not. 2 loving parents are better than 1, but I didn't know. It was impossible to tell how things would work out in the future. All I could think was, if I tell this guy, he can take my son. If I tell this guy, he can take my son. A judge can award him custody of my son and I won't be able to do anything about it. I don't know how to describe how terrifying that thought is. The thought of my helpless, innocent baby being outside my reach. If something bad were to happen to him during that time, he couldn't even tell me. It's not that I thought something bad would happen. I'm not anti-men or anti-trucker or anything like that. I don't think all men are evil. It was just this idea that, once I tell the baby daddy, I've done something I can't undo, and anything might happen. You can think I'm horrible, selfish, a narcissist, the worst kind of female, whatever. None of that matters to me. What's best for my son is the only deciding factor. And in case you didn't realise, I eventually did make the decision to reach out to the baby daddy. I did want to get to know him a bit before saying anything, but when he figured it out, I didn't lie. I could have, but in the end I decided Kiddo deserved to know his dad, and if I lied right then I could be throwing away that chance. since he clearly only agreed to meet me because he figured out what happened. I don't feel like I did anything wrong by being cautious about it. Anyway, hopefully that clears things up. Y'all might not still like me or understand me, but that's how I feel. Alrighty folks, and that's the end of that story. Let me know your thoughts down below. Honestly, that whole thing was surprisingly low drama, which is a bit of a shock on this subreddit. Alrighty, let's go to the next story. Okay, this one was posted on Am I Wrong? It was written by user Path Majestic, and it's titled, Planned the office Halloween event, and now I feel like absolute garbage. I was recently hired in an assistant role at a law firm fresh out of college. In comparison to the other people in the office, excluding the other assistants, I'm pretty young, 22 female. One of the partners put me in charge of the office Halloween party, so I'd been planning everything for about 2 weeks. What I came up with was wearing costumes into the office and an EOD party in the decorated, spooky conference room where people in the office paint pumpkins as treats, select mystery coffee pods, different flavours, as tricks, and just eat sweet food together while streaming the Charlie Brown special. I got into the office early this morning to decorate the office, and the partner in question got annoyed when she came in and saw what I was doing. Even though I got approval from her, she was disappointed that this is what I went with, described it as incredibly juvenile, and said that I should have gone with something like costumes and going to an office happy hour. She's now confirming with the other assistant in charge of the holiday Christmas party that it is an adult affair, expensive dinner outing, and it seems like I stressed everyone out and just feel really embarrassed right now. These office morale activities are important, and now I feel like I'm so deeply in the wrong end and screwed everything up. Honestly, it just sounds like Opie didn't get enough prompt from the boss. Like, how is she supposed to know exactly what you wanted? Let's go to the comments. Assuming you went to college for law and not event planning, this is actually brilliant. It's your get out of jail free card from similar tasks in the future. I try to avoid working with this particular partner as much as possible. She sucks at mentoring and communicating. This is why I'm glad I didn't end up working in law, lol. Yeah, you probably should have been more direct with exactly what you're planning. Attorneys aren't going to be painting pumpkins during the workday at the office because the psychopath partner they work for would see it as juvenile's waste of time. Sucks, but take it as a learning experience. I don't think it's going to kill your career or anything, unless you're really working for a psychopath, which to be fair is more common in the legal profession than most. I work in a similar field as you, without giving so much away. Don't feel too bad about it. I didn't know too much about lawyers myself before coming into this business. However, coming in, I now know that they're kinda squares. Even as far as Halloween. Evidently, a few years back we used to do more fun things in the office, and now it's all mostly phased out. From Halloween parties to even wearing a costume. I'm actually the only one here today wearing anything Halloween related. I'm also the youngest in my office, by a lot. Hang in there if this is what you want to do. At least you get to plan stuff. Hoping I get that responsibility soon. Okay, onto an update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the encouragement and constructive criticism. To give a bit of context before the full update. 1. When I was tasked with planning the event, I did reach out to the girl who had this job before me. She's now in law school, and she said that they did pumpkin carving last year, so I pivoted to painting to change it up a bit and decrease on mess. I also added the mystery coffee pod and decorating the office as a fun little thing. 2. I did get the partner's approval before planning the whole event because I had to budget everything out with a proposal. So she knew about it, but she likely A. forgot about the thing until she saw me decorating, or didn't think I was serious. She was also upset because our sister office went out for drinks the day before, and she wanted to impress our new partner, who was sick and couldn't even attend. 3. For everyone who said that Charlie Brown was juvenile, I agree, but I was going to play the movie for the back half of the event. It was an hour, because it was mentioned to me that another partner was bringing their daughter, 5 female, who was visiting internationally, but my boss thought I would have planned a happy hour afterwards or something. I didn't do so. Anyways, I went through with the party and it all went really well. I ended up not buying any alcohol and just went through with the pumpkin painting over some Halloween music, candy and fresh-baked cookies, and some warm apple cider. The people who partook in the mystery coffee pods liked their flavours for the most part. Haha, the trick. As for the event, not everyone in the office showed up, including my boss, but about 75% did. About 3 others were in costume, and they all had a decent time. 5 female also had a good time decorating cookies and watching Charlie Brown while waiting for her dad. All in all, I think I'll leave the adult party planning to my slightly older co-worker. She's the social butterfly of the office, but I'm just glad that today wasn't a disaster. Yeah, there you go, no harm done. But yeah, I think that other comment was spot on when they said that it's probably a good thing. It means you get out of having to plan things like this in the future. Unless you really enjoy it, then I guess it's bad, but I don't know, I probably wouldn't. Anyway, let's go to our next story. Okay, this next one's back on relationship advice. It was written by a throwaway account, and it's titled, I just found out my fiancé I've been with for 5 years was a monster in high school. Okay guys, so I, 25 female, met my fiancé, 27 male, 5 years ago. I thought he was perfect. He's handsome, kind, funny, and he has a stable job, cop. He's treated me so well since we met. He stopped me down for speeding and ended up with my number. Everything was going good, so looking back now, I should have seen the red flags like his family and old friends joking about his temper and his high school bad boy days. And now I'm questioning, did my cat really run away or did he make him? I'm babbling, so here's what happened. We had an engagement party in his hometown a few days ago, and I got a Facebook message warning me about my fiancé, saying he was this monster in high school. So I thought, lol, this is someone trolling. But then as the day went on, about 5 more people messaged me, one being his cousin. I asked my cousin for proof because in my naive dumb head I thought this was a joke because my fiancé is an amazing person. He's a cop for God's sake, and his cousin told me to give him a few hours. Well, about 2 hours ago my world turned upside down. I was added to a group chat with multiple people with a lot of proof and videos. I heard stories and seen screenshots, even a memorial page of one of his victims, suicide at 16. Guys, this was horror movie level crap, from threats, assault, both physically and sexual, lots of misogyny and homophobia, even one of him harming a person's dog while the kid screamed as my fiancé laughed. He looked about 18 in the video. The stories I heard both broke my heart and scared me, and I don't know what to do. Maybe he's changed? Should I confront him? Should I give him a chance to tell his side? Okay, so I'll give more information now I'm alone. I spoke to his cousin and I asked why they didn't ever do anything since they have videos, and he said, "You haven't thought we tried years ago? Life isn't a fairy tale. The bad guy doesn't always face justice. Your future in-laws and fiancé made sure everything always went away." And I then asked, why now tell me? He was honest, and they, him and the other victims, wanted to warn me out of both concern, but mostly revenge, because how dare he have a happy life after what he did to them, which is fair. I asked, did he know if my fiancé ever did anything like anger management or therapy after high school? He said he did, and I asked, does he think my fiancé changed? He said, while he isn't like his high school self anymore, people like him never truly change. I asked him if I decided to leave, would he help me? He said he would, but we would need to make a plan that can't lead back to him for his safety. Wow, what a nightmare thing to find out about someone you're in love with. Let's look at some comments. If this is real, the first red flag was a cop taking your personal number after flagging you down for speeding. That's a gross abuse of power and should never have happened. Do not marry him. It will make it even harder and more dangerous to get out down the line. This will not end well for you. Dude, there's video evidence of him abusing an animal, threats of sexual assault. Oh, and he's a cop, which is a job that comes with a lot of power and control. Your dude's a future murderer for sure. Good luck. I would never feel safe with someone like this. I'd be planning an exit strategy. Please don't get pregnant. So if you leave him, I'd ghost him. Leave him a note with your explanation, but I'd leave where I was living and disappear. You leaving him may trigger violence. Do you live in a city or a town? Do you work? What about your family? Okay, on to a quick update. Okay, I'll answer some things that you all keep bringing up. I can't 100% say he unalived my cat because my cat liked to escape and wander the neighbourhood. People keep asking me why I didn't see any red flags in 5 years. I didn't notice them at the time. As for how we got together, people keep pointing out that it was a red flag. Look, I'm going to be real here. At the time, I thought it was hot stuff because I talked my way out of a ticket, and he's really handsome, so I thought in my naive head it would be a cute story to tell our grandkids one day. I'm from a country where people don't fear cops like they do in America. Hey guys, he knows about the post. He just sent me this and said, we need to talk. Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good. Let's go to the last update. I'm okay. My legs hurt from running, but I'm at a safe place with a trusted person, and I've talked to my fiancé by phone. I'll update later on our conversation and his side, because as of now, I don't want to give out much information that leads to my whereabouts, but I'll tell everyone how he found the post. I was too stupid not to change details, so someone we knew recognized it and sent him this post. I also found my passport, which in my panic I forgot I moved when I was reorganizing a few weeks ago, and he also admitted to giving my cat to a co-worker, which until I see proof, I don't believe it. There's other stuff. Okay, and that's the last update for that one. Sounds like Opie's getting out of Dodge on this one. Comment down below your thoughts on this one. Either way, that's it from me today. Hope you guys enjoyed those stories. Thanks for making it to the end, and I'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.